Alors, bonsoir tout le monde, bienvenue à
Good
cette...
evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Standing Committee on Strategies and Public Strategies and Policies, a meeting where we get presentations either from staff and or from the public, presentations that will be presented, but the material has been presented to sent to council ahead of time so that they can review it before the meeting. So it's a meeting where there are no decisions taken. It's simply for information for council members so that we can take appropriate decisions. That being said, the first person is Mr. Luc Bugeaud. We will be talking about the active transportation plan. Mr. Bugeaud, good evening, Your Honor, members of council, members of the public, and also our friend from Atelier Urbain who are online who will be making this. But I wanted to make a short introduction. We have a report that will be presented tonight, and it's a great pleasure for us to be here today for the presentation. It's an active transportation plan that was started in January 2021 after we hired the Atelier Urbain company. It was a fairly lengthy process, longer than we thought. We took a few extra months, and there are a few reasons for that. There was a change in the main person working with on this file for Atelier Urbain, so we that did slow down the project, and also the pandemic made it such that it complicated the nature of the work because we had to verify a lot of the information. So it's a 10-year plan that we'll be presenting tonight. What does it mean? I mean, certainly there will be changes. I don't people to think it's carved in stone because the municipality is growing and there could be some important developments in certain parts of the municipality so that we would have to reevaluate it. So we have to be prepared to adjust. But nonetheless, it's a 10-year plan and numerous recommendations. You may have had a look at it. There are some recommendations, some priorities, and the plan. We are in the process of having it translated. When we have it translated into English, we will post it to the Dialogue Dieppe site. You have it's a fairly long volume. It's over 140 pages. When I say that it's our first transportation plan in Dieppe, we did some work in 2011. That work was done internally, where it was mainly an inventory of trails and sidewalks, etc. But there was no analysis and no public consultation. So it's really our first active transportation plan as such. I'd like to thank the people. There are lots of people who gave us feedback through the platform. We distributed a questionnaire. There were also some Zoom meetings. We had some people here tonight who participated. So I want to thank the public who participated. It was important to get the feedback from the public, and this was analyzed and is reflected in the plan. I would also like to thank the people internally. We did some work with an internal committee, so I'd like to thank Luc Buchard, Mr. Babin, Jason Nadeau, and Alexandre Girard. We had lots of meetings. It was really pleasant task because Atelier Urbain have some expertise and they are good at communicating the information. It was a pleasure for us to work with them and to get to this nice document. So tonight, the people from Atelier Urbain. There are two people who will join us, Mr. Marc-André Bourgault, who was the lead on this project, and also Pierre-Olivier Robitaille. Those people will give you an overview. You can ask some questions, but certainly we're not going to go into detail tonight because we'll be here for a long time. So I will turn it over to the two participants from Atelier Urbain. So Marc-André, if the floor is yours. Hello, everyone.
Donc, est-ce que ça fonctionne de votre côté?
Is it working for you? Yes, it is. Whoops, we just lost it.
Oui,
OK, c'est là.
c'est bon?
Okay,
OK,
it's
parfait.
there. Great.
Donc, merci de nous accueillir ce soir.
So thank you for
Moi-même,
welcoming us
Marc-André
here
Bourbeau,
this
et
evening.
mon
Myself,
collègue
Marc-André
Pierre Olivier,
Bourbeau,
nous avons travaillé
with
là, sur
my colleague Pierre
le
Olivier, we
transport
worked
actif
on
de
the
la
active
ville de Dieppe.
transportation
Et
plan for the city of
à partir
Dieppe
du moment où il y a eu une
from the
réorganisation de notre projet au
time
début
that
avec
there was a
Stéphanie Rocher,
reorganization at the beginning. It
comme
was
Luc
with
a
Stephanie
expliqué.
Rocher, and then the mandate was
Dans le
passed
fond,
on to
toutes
other
les
staff, as Luc
informations
has
ont
explained.
été
So all of the
transférées
information was
et
transferred
jusqu'à
as
aujourd'hui,
it should be.
on a
And
complété
up
le
until
document.
today, we've completed the
Donc
document
aujourd'hui,
that
ce
we're
que vous voyez
presenting
ce
to you
soir, c'est
today.
une
What you
présentation
see
totale.
tonight
Le
is a
document a beaucoup plus
summary
d'informations
presentation. The
et vous
document has a
voyez
lot
comment
more
c'est
detail.
présenté,
There's
mais
a lot
aujourd'hui, c'est vraiment
more
les
text.
projets,
But today, the idea is just
les
to give you
principaux
an
objectifs
overview of the
du
main
projet actif
goals of this
ici
active transportation
de
plan.
Saint-Dieppe. Donc, qui sommes-nous
So,
Atelier
who
Urbain?
are
On est
we
un
at
cabinet
Urbain?
d'urbanisme, de design
We're
urbain. On a
a
travaillé
firm of
avec
urban
vous. On a eu la
planners,
chance
land use
de
planners. We've
travailler sur le
worked
plan
with you. We had
d'urbanisme
a
de la
chance
ville.
to work on
Vous
the
voyez là, par exemple,
downtown
une
plan. So
visualisation
you'll
en haut à
see a
droite
visualization
dans le
top
cadre de ce
right
mandat-là. Donc, on travaille
within
surtout
that
avec les
project. So we
communautés, avec
work
les
mainly
civils.
with
On essaie vraiment de
communities, with
travailler
municipal
de
services.
façon
We tried to
collaborative.
work in a
Donc,
collaborative manner
d'amener l'idée des
to
ateliers de
get the
travail,
idea of
des consultations avec la
workshops and
population et
consultations
de
with the
guider
public.
le
So
travail pour le présent
that
mandat.
was our approach for
On
this
travaille
particular
sur des
project.
documents de
We
planification
work
aussi,
on planning
plans
documents,
de transport actif comme c'est le cas
active
aujourd'hui,
transportation
et
plans like
avec
this one, as well as
des planifications
land
avec les
use
directeurs
plans,
d'aménagement de quartier, de
planning of
centre-ville. C'est un peu notre gamme
downtowns, neighborhoods, etc. So
Donc,
that's in summary what
du
we
design
do
urbain aussi, la
as
planification avec
far as some urban design and longer term planning as well.
au niveau de la démarche,
So in
le plan
terms of
transport
the
actif a
approach
débuté
here,
en
the active
2021.
transportation
On a
plan
vraiment essayé de
started in
diagnostiquer
2021.
voir
First of all, there was a diagnosis of the
le diagnostic, ça a vraiment été l'occasion
territory. That
d'aborder
was
l'aspect
really
c'est
the
quoi le réseau
opportunity to
urbain, c'est quoi les
analyze
principaux
your
générateurs
current
de déplacement
network. What are the
hydrodynamiques,
main
les pôles commerciaux,
transportation
les pôles
corridors?
résidentiels. Qu'est-ce
The
que vous avez aussi en place
residential
actuellement comme mesure de
areas.
limitation de la
What do
circulation?
you have now as measures
C'est quoi les
to
projets qui sont
limit
déjà dans vos cartons pour le prochain
circulation?
mandat?
And what are the
Et donc,
projects that are already
vraiment
planned? So the
d'avoir une
idea of
visibilité
that was
extérieure
for us
pour
as an
avoir une
outside
connaissance
firm to get a
détaillée
good
du
knowledge
projet.
of your
Ensuite, il y a
what
eu
you
une
have
période
today.
consultation
Then we had the
et
consultation
test de
period, and the
diagnostic
idea was
avec la
to
compréhension
make sure we
des
had
demandes des
diagnosis
de la
was correct with
population,
all of
des
the input of
utilisateurs
the
du réseau.
population,
Ça,
the
c'est
people who
vraiment une
use
étape hyper
the
importante
transportation network. That's a very important step.
d'avoir
First
un
of
atelier
all,
collaboratif de
we had a
sondage
collaborative
vraiment
workshop and a survey. The two were
en
done
phase. L'atelier
uh,
collaboratif
two phases.
a
The
vraiment
collaborative
introduit des
workshop
éléments plutôt au niveau, bon, c'est quoi les
was
problématiques, c'est quoi les
identified what
freins
the problems
de
are with the current
l'intégration des
network.
utilisateurs.
What would the
Dans l'atelier
users
de
like
sondage,
to
on est vraiment
see?
été
While with the
dans
survey,
des projets
we
à
went
priorité, on veut
into
des interventions
projects or
prioritaires pour
the
les citoyens.
priority interventions
On
for
va
the
y revenir un
people
peu
who
plus loin.
responded to the survey. And we'll come back later with the results of
Ensuite, c'est la période
that step.
d'animation.
And
Donc,
then
une
it's
fois
the
qu'on a bien
planning
compris
stage.
votre
So once
territoire,
we had understood
consulter les utilisateurs,
the
les
site, we had
populations locaux,
consulted the users, municipal
on,
services,
fais-
and
on
then
faisait vraiment une
we
vision de votre
we
réseau de
developed
transport actif,
we
qu'est-ce
had a
qui est
vision
bien de
of
ce qui
your
va bien être
network,
accueilli. Puis après
what
ça,
is there,
vous
and
aviez
then
fait
we were
des
coming with
propositions
proposals
d'intervention, des
for
éléments à faire, un nouveau
things that
réseau à
could be
compléter.
done, a
Et
new
vraiment avec une
network to be
planification.
completed. So
Puis
that's
comme
the
je
planning
mentionnais
phase.
tantôt, à
As
partir
Luc
de là,
mentioned
vous avez
earlier,
reçu de
from
votre
that,
côté,
then
le
from
comité de
your point
travail de
of
la ville,
view, the
beaucoup
working committee met,
de bagages de notre part.
the
Il
city
y a eu du
working committee
travail
met,
pour
we presented
s'assurer
with you, and then there was
d'avoir
some
la
work to ensure that
d'avoir une
everything
fine connaissance du territoire,
lines up
qui
with
concernait la
the
ville. Puis on arrive en
with
2022,
what we
donc
developed. And now we're in 2022
aujourd'hui avec la
today
présentation, puis
with the
le dépôt
presentation,
là, du plan de transport
and
actif.
then
Donc
we
ça
will
commence vraiment
be
par
presenting or
la
tabling the
présentation.
plan. So that gives you an idea of the steps taken.
Le transport actif, qu'est-ce que c'est?
So active
Principalement, quand on parle de
transportation,
transport
what
actif,
is
on parle
that? When we're
d'équipements
talking
électroniques
about
qui nécessitent
Active transportation, we're talking about a mode of transportation that requires human effort, not an automobile or a bus or other types of transportation. When we're talking about this, we can talk about recreational, biking in order to just to travel, to get to look at the parks and the trails, as well as a more utilitarian purpose. So utilitarian travel is something that needs other needs. We are conscious of the time that it takes and the effort that it takes, given that we're traveling out of necessity, for example, going to work, going to school, or to run some errands at different stores, for example. Also, please note that active transportation is quite wide. It includes mm, bicycling and walking, those are the main ones, but can also include other types of, for example, scooters, inline skating, and even people who move around have limited mobility, but that also must be kept into account when we look at this. So, why would we want to have an active transportation plan? First of all, it will allow you to promote active transportation and a healthy lifestyle for your community. That is one of the objectives, primary objectives of this active transportation plan. Then it gives you, in Dieppe, it gives you a document that will allow you to take good decisions, efficient decisions for the coming years, based on a long-term vision. I'm going to say in 10 or 15 years, this is the big vision for your transportation plan and how the work will be done. And then starting with that vision, we can identify the interventions that are needed. And then in your action plan each year, you can follow that document. So you're going to really create a document that will help you make decisions. So it's a decision making tool. It also has allows us to have a comprehensive diagnosis of the need and also to bring the users in your network together to find out what their needs are. And also, it becomes a guide for the city for the best practices and the developments that should be prioritized. For the consultation, I talked about these earlier. There were many elements that came out with the users. Among others, we discussed about unsafe intersections and crosswalks. What were the problems related to that? And also the problems related to the speed that the cars are traveling and the distraction for the driver. So how can the plan address these things? As well, access to the downtown and the feeling of safety on Champlain. We'd really like to get to downtown other than by car, but in a safe way. Discontinuous routes is an issue. When we talk about your current network, sometimes there are some missing sections. So it allowed us to identify what are the main shortfalls, the connection with other cities, including Moncton, the problem with the bicycle theft, street design as well. That was even discussed, like when the street is discussed in a certain way. Me, as a bicyclist, I feel less safe with it. The construction site, safety overall, and even use winter needs. So those were all the points that were discussed by the community. For us, we took that and it helped us feed the proposals that we've developed. So the diagnosis you will see in the document as such is quite detailed. There are maps, so we explain each of the themes. But for this presentation tonight, I'll summarize what were the main elements in terms of strengths and weaknesses that we identified. And then we linked that was related to the proposals. First of all, you have nearly 130 kilometers of existing active transportation network, trails and various networks that help people move around. And then the presence of the Petitcodiac River, that's an important part of the landscape. It allows us to have a network that will take into account the presence of this river. And I would say, generally, for all of the river area, also there's the network of parks and green spaces. We took that into account to see what it can contribute to connectivity, for example. And then the current downtown, that's a strength because it allows you to group together many services, many businesses. So it's better to have a network that will allow people to converge towards that area as opposed to activities that would be spread out over the entire. And finally, a committed community. We talked about it with the working committee of the town. During the consultations, we felt that the community is committed. And even in your council, you're aware of active transportation. And that's what a strength compared to other cities, that we can develop a vision that's fairly innovative. As far as weaknesses are concerned, I mentioned it earlier, the current network has, there are some missing sections, there's discontinuity, and then the path width and layout, there are some sections that have a fair bit of traffic and it may be not sufficiently wide to ensure that it's comfortable for the users, that there's a good, that the bicyclists and people walking or running can share it. So you'll see that the collaboration between the different users, we have to think about that so that we can get a network where everybody's comfortable. And then the last point I would say is the unsafe street sections and intersections. We've identified them, those for which there could be some improvements that could be made in order to improve the safety. So, as I was saying earlier, the plan proposes a long-term vision. Starting from that vision, there's some interventions that are proposed. I will read the vision. It's a text that says, in 2040, what will be the active transportation network? So we're saying in 2040, the active transportation network would offer to all residents of Dieppe the choice to move around in a safe and pleasant manner, regardless of the type of transportation. The management of the streets and the trails ensures the protection of the most vulnerable users. The network is connected and continuous. It serves the different sections of the town and lays and connects the main generators of movement, including the downtown, to the different sections. The users, regardless of their age or type of transportation, have access to attractive facilities and adapted to a more active lifestyle for all seasons. So there are many elements included in this vision. First of all, the idea to allow all to choose their type of transport. If you want to use the car, okay, but if you want to use the bike, you have access to a network that allows you to do so safely. And then we're talking about planning of streets and trails, a network that's connected and continuous and that serves the different destination points. And finally, we're talking about utilizers, regardless of their age or mode of transportation, so to offer plans that are adapted to the younger and older. And finally, the vision talks about active lifestyle in all seasons. So, how to do that? We can walk or bike winter, fall, spring, etc. So the first orientation was completing the active transportation network that and would be accessible year round. So from that are many specific objectives. The first of all, objective 1.1 is connecting the main trip generators. So what do we mean by that? It's really to give you a network that would be this main primary skeleton. It's the main network for travel by bicycle. So this would be to ensure that the bicycle has a priority, so it doesn't share the trails with pedestrians. So we have some that are just for bicycles, and that the intersections are managed such a way to reflect the existence of that network. The idea with this first skeleton is to link the downtown and the different neighborhoods with a network that is very efficient. So here we're targeting on people who use a bicycle but they want to go downtown to or to the community college or whatever and do it quickly and safely. Next, objective 1.2 is to create recreational and continuous pathways. So the idea that was raised here is to give you some routes for recreation purposes. So once we've identified the main efficient network for network, now we're offering an alternative for people or families who just want to move for recreational purpose, so weekend trap. So what we're seeing here are different loops. What you will see in the transportation, which is fairly detailed, but the idea is to offer to the users the choice. For example, today I'd like to do the short loop, the blue one. We know that it's 12 kilometers. Everything is well sign. It's clearly indicated, so we can clearly do that. So you follows your current trails, and for the recreational one, we're looking at other trails that are in the parks where the landscape is more important because that's really the idea here. So you'll see there's the Riverside one, 24 kilometers, one to the south that's 14 kilometers, an eastern loop of 12 kilometers that allows you to travel, to change routes and to choose you. We also took into account the the bike route, which is a regional project. We take it into account, but we just want to say that all of that still needs to be determined based on future discussions on that project, the regional bike route. Objective 1.3 is to provide access to a year-round cycling and pedestrian network. So here we want to say what will be the priority for snow removal on bike trails. So will we do all the snow removal, or will it just be well then? So if we'll determine if it is it. It'll depend whether it's paved or gravel, but this will determine what will be the winter network that will be a priority for snow removal.
L'objectif 1.4, relier les
So
principaux
goal 1.4 is to
transports actifs de Dieppe. Est-ce que
connect Dieppe and its active transportation
voilà,
to those in the
qu'est-ce qu'on veut
neighboring
dire dans le plan de transport actif?
community.
On
So
veut
what we're
pas
saying
vraiment
here is that we're really
mesurer
going to
combien que ça réduirait
ensure
avec les villes
that we
voisines,
can
parce qu'on veut être
connect
actif
with the neighboring
au plus des réseaux
municipalities
qui seraient régionaux. Donc,
and we
si
can
on veut
participate in a more
descendre
regional network. So that's really uh, the idea.
1.5, déployer des
1.5,
infrastructures de transport actifs
developing
connectées et
connected
rapides.
and
Une fois qu'on
appropriate
est là,
active
vous travaillez
transportation
tout votre
infrastructure. So
réseau
when we've
votre vision
mapped
2040.
out the network
Maintenant,
that
c'est de venir avec
corresponds to
une
the
vision
2040 vision,
de
but to say,
création
well,
qui est
what
ouverte
type
sur les
of
villes voisines.
improvements should be made on the street?
Vous verrez dans le document, on vient vraiment le
So
détailler.
you'll
Vous voyez,
see
il y a
in the
plein de
documents, will give you the
couleurs,
detail. You'll see on this
différentes
map, there are many
directrices de
colors. We're really
priorité
saying
qu'on vient
what type of
prioriser en fonction de
trail
où
we
on se trouve et
prioritize
en
based on
fonction
where
des
we are,
réseaux
and also as a function
et
of
des autres objectifs. Par
the
exemple, si on
other
fait tantôt
goals. For example, when we were talking about
le
the
premier squelette,
active
on veut vraiment
transportation work,
connecter
well,
au
then we
vélo et
really
au
wanted
cycle.
to
Alors que
be
pour les sentiers
for
cyclables,
bicycles
on
only,
veut
while
vraiment
for the
faire
trails
réduire
in the
l'aménagement qui se
park,
fait
etc., then it's another type
pour
of
ce faire,
management.
pour que votre plan de transport actif puisse
So
permettre
that your
vraiment
active
de
transportation
prioriser
plan can
soit
guide
bien
you in making
comme ça, c'est
decisions.
extrait du
This is
document,
the
mais vraiment de façon
extracted
bien
from
visuelle
the
qui
document, but
permet
this
vraiment
is
de
an
poser
art
des
chart
questions
that allows you to
et
ask
déterminer
questions, or it's a
déterminer quel
decision tree,
type
let's say, to
d'aménagement
determine what
on
type
devrait prioriser.
of development should
On est
be
au niveau de la
prioritized.
grande échelle quand on est dans
So
un
this is
transport
on
actif.
a broad
On vient
scale. When
établir des
we're doing
grandes
this, we're
intentions, mais
establishing
on
the
ne le fait
main
pas de manière
intentions, so
ciblée
we
pour dire
can't
sur telle rue,
say
ça devrait absolument être aménagé de telle
on
manière,
which
de telle
street should
ampleur.
be
On n'a pas la finesse
done in such a way or to what width or whatever. We're not in that level of detail.
dans la prochaine année. Ici, on trace des grandes
Here
intentions.
we're
Donc,
setting
ce
out the
qu'on peut
main
dire, c'est par exemple,
intent.
en
What
répondant à
we're
cette
saying
question en
is that
fonction
by
de la
asking a
modalité de
few
choix
questions as to
au
what
garage
type
du jour,
of
est-ce qu'on
road we're
devrait
on,
prioriser, par exemple,
should we have a
l'espace B, qui est
priority
la
for
bande
type
vraiment étroite,
C,
puis si
which
on a
is
un espace limité quand on
uh,
arrive pour faire vraiment les plans,
a,
puis qu'on n'a pas d'emprise, par exemple, quelle
a
autre
bike
alternative
trail. So if we can't do it, then what are the other alternatives?
actif
Now,
et devient
after
vraiment
we've
plus
based on
détaillé
the
ces
active
différents territoires.
transportation plan, then
Donc
it
là,
gives you
l'objectif,
details
c'est
on
vraiment
those
de
things.
donner une
Then
idée
it gives you an idea of
qu'on
what
veut dire
we're
ici,
talking
on
about
devrait
when we're
favoriser
saying
par
here
exemple
we
tout
should
simplement
favor, for
la mobilité
example,
partagée parce qu'on est dans une
the
mobilité qui
shared
est
shoulder
vraiment pas
because it's a
dominée
small
par beaucoup de voitures,
street that
c'est
doesn't have
une
much
vitesse de
traffic
circulation
on
plus
it
basse,
and the
alors
traffic
que
moves
dans un
fairly
autre cas, ben,
slowly.
peut-être
While in another case,
la piste cyclable
it might
multifonctionnelle qui
be
serait
the
l'option. Donc,
multifunctional
le plan de
bike
transport actif
lanes.
vient vraiment
So the
nous donner
active
une prise de décision
transportation
pour
plan
mieux
includes
choisir
this
le bon
decision
réseau
making
adapté à
tool
nos
that will
besoins.
ensure that you'll get the right network adapted to your needs.
Dernier objectif pour cette
The
orientation,
last
le
goal,
1.6.
the last goal,
Pallier et
1.6,
étendre le réseau piétonnier et
expanding
cyclable.
and connecting the pedestrian
L'idée
network.
ici, c'est qu'on est venu
The idea here is that we
emprunter, dans le fond,
wanted
les
to
trottoirs à ajouter en
outline
fonction de
the
nos recommandations
uh,
pour les prochaines années. Dès qu'il y aura des travaux
sidewalks to be added over
par
the
exemple,
coming years
sur un
when there's work
trottoir
on a
ou un
certain area.
premier trottoir,
Either add a first or a
notre
second
réseau
sidewalk to
piétonnier,
that
c'est
street. That's
important,
fine.
puis il y a certains
As the
critères qui sont
pedestrian network,
en
there are
fonction
certain
de cet aspect qu'on
criteria
devrait
that
absolument
we have
prendre
to
en compte
have,
pour
that
faire
it
évoluer.
should have.
Puis, en fonction du réseau cyclable qu'on veut, si on veut un sentier
It's a
partagé,
function
ça
of
ne nous
the
dérange pas que les
bike
voies
network. If we
piétonnes
want a
s'installent
shared
au milieu des sentiers. Par
trail,
contre,
there's no
dans
problem
ce
if
cas-là,
the
on a vraiment
pedestrians
privilégié
and
un
cyclists
réseau qui
share it.
permette
But on the
d'utiliser
other hand, if
différents
we're just
réseaux
having a
de
network just
transport
for the bikes,
dans,
then we
dans
might want to
ce
have,
cas-là de rue.
in that case, have a separate sidewalk for pedestrians.
On tombe à la deuxième orientation,
Orientation
assurer
two,
la sécurité des déplacements actifs.
keeping active travel safe.
Donc là, si vous comprenez bien, dans
So
le fond,
here,
deux
if you
parties. On est venu
understand what we're
tracer
doing
votre
here
réseau
is
en
that
fonction de
we
plusieurs objectifs.
have
Le 1,
mapped out your
on est
network,
venu aussi déterminer quels
but here we've
sentiers
also
ou quels
determined what
aménagements ce serait les meilleurs pour vous.
form it should take and what
Ensuite, dans cette
improvements
orientation-là,
should
maintenant,
be done.
c'est de
So
s'assurer que les déplacements
we also want to
sécuritaires.
ensure that the travel is safe on
Donc,
that.
2.1, favoriser un apaisement de
So
la vie cyclable.
2.1, we want to promote,
Vous allez voir, dans le fond, les
first
premiers
of all, want to
objectifs
promote traffic calming or
viennent
slowing it down.
des
So you see that
ici, on
these
vient
first
vraiment
objectives talk
identifier
about
c'est
that.
quoi
So here we've
les
identified what are
environnements
the
de circulation
streets
automobile,
where
par
there's
exemple les
more
artères principales plus collectrices
automobile
ou les
travel,
voies
for example, the
divergées.
main arteries and the
Et
collector
ce serait quoi aussi les
streets,
entrées de
and then
quartier
also what
et
would
les
be
exits. Exemple,
the
dans un
entrance,
quartier
the
résidentiel
streets that
auquel
enter
la
the
sécurité
residential
ou la
neighborhoods,
classification, on les considère
where
comme
for
les
the
rues locales,
classification we
mais
consider
seulement
them as
dans la
local
ville.
streets, but
Les rues
based on our
dans
analysis,
lesquelles il
these
peut
are
y avoir une
streets for
certaine
which there
vitesse de
can be
circulation.
fairly fast-moving traffic.
Ensuite, un peu comme pour le réseau, ce qu'on vient vous mettre au plan de transport actif, mais c'est une gamme d'outils, comme un peu un coffre à outils, sur quel type d'intervention devrait être mis en place en fonction de où on se trouve sur le territoire. Est-ce qu'on devrait, par exemple, favoriser les dos down, les traverses avec une balise?
Should we have slow down spaces,
Donc là, ça vient vraiment des meilleures
have
recommandations
a
d'aménagement sécuritaire
streets that are not as wide so they'll be safer for pedestrians
Puis, bien sûr, on
and
va vraiment
cyclists?
proposer en fonction
And
des
we
besoins
propose
adaptés
as
à une
well
voie plus étroite.
development that is adapted for a larger
Aménagement de la circulation,
street.
alors que si on est plus
Then,
près d'une école ou dans un secteur
and if we're
très
close to a
concurrentiel,
school, it would be
ça,
different
ça peut être
because we could
compatible
have
beaucoup avec les services de
bumps
mobilité
for the traffic.
internes à la ville. L'objectif d'1.2, il se poursuit dans le fond
Point
un peu comme
two
1.1, c'est encore de venir
follows
sensibiliser les
1.1.
citoyens,
It's
c'est-à-dire
for
sensibiliser les
safety
usagers
and to
aux risques
develop
et les avantages.
safely corridors
Donc,
and
on
school
identifie les
zones.
écoles sur votre
So
territoire.
we identify the schools that are on the territory.
Grand plan d'action à la toute fin.
And when we
Vraiment
had
pour
our
un
big
sentier
action
qui devrait être
plan at
adapté
the end,
à faire
when we identified the interventions to be done,
que on
schools
veut favoriser
were
la sécurité
prioritized
des enfants.
because we want children to use as a
Euh,
active transportation.
2.3, on est encore dans la logique de
2.3 is in the
choisir
same
le
idea of
qui
thought.
adapterait le milieu de vie des usagers aux besoins spécifiques.
It's for the people who have special needs, where we have older people, for example, they have different needs. If they're older, they'll take a lot more time to cross the street. So we want to make sure they're safe as well as the same we do it near schools. So it will give us a network that will be accessible to all. And when you think about children and seniors, we talk about most of the users, then we have reduced mobility users as well that have other needs. So then we'll have a network that'll be accessible to all. The fourth objective is to make it easier to cross the streets at the intersections. If we're near a school in a sector where we have sensitive users, or if we have types of bicycle trails and we want a certain development in the intersections for the cyclists and the pedestrians. So if we characterize the territory, we identify which intersections should be improved with our long-term vision. So if we have any work to be done, and then we have a way to develop the intersections as well to be able to secure active transportation with crosswalks and entrance ways or an intersection where there are cyclists and you can see there is space for the bicycle to wait at the light and is very well indicated. For orientation 3, to have installations that are attractive, convivial, and safe as well. So we have a network. Second orientation is that it is safe and well developed. And three, it's to put into place installations and services around the network so it will be more attractive. Objective 3.1 is to improve the bicycle parking and for the safety as well. But we could have these all over the network. We could have places that were priority to put this type of installation in. You see it at the left. This is an interior safe installation. It could be something else as well. And that would depend on the project put into place. So we're just identifying the needs. Objective 3.2 is to have a distinctive signage. So the active transportation plan has a certain image for the future for the network to have signs like this adapted to our loops with the different colors and identifying the destinations. We already have this type of signage on the territory already. So we'll just make it better. We could give these loops a different name and a different color, and it would be clear how many kilometers left before you get to your destination. So all this is on the table for future projects for the signage of this type. 3.3, integrate rest areas on certain axes. Here it was to find places on the network where we could think about having rest zones. It could be a bench, a table, or something a little bit more intense. All this to make sure that the recreation network has installations with the presence of seniors as well because they need extra benches to sit and they could take advantage of this network. 3.4 is lighting. We have to have an objective for active transportation on lighting and the type of lighting that we would like for this network. So when you put into place a certain work or development, we should prioritize lighting adapted to the cyclists. You have examples here. So it's an objective with respect to this element. Number 4, we want a secure and attractive network, but we have to promote it and educate people to the realities of active transportation with between cars and the users of active transportation. To promote a healthy and active lifestyle with the community is 4.1. So we have a good strategy, a healthy strategy, and we could have signs for the loops, recreational loops, and to promote them and have actions in the plan with respect to this. 4.2, raise awareness about pedestrians and cyclist cohabitation. We are proposing actions here to educate all the users, take into account the cyclists, the pedestrian, and the drivers, as well as new modes of transportation, like electric bicycles, for instance, that are becoming more popular. So we need actions for a more global reflection respecting these issues. At the end of the document, after all the objectives are presented, we have a series of actions for the long term. So we have strategies for prioritizing this. With respect to priorities, we have to establish 4 levels of priorities. And then we'll have to put it all together with the infrastructure, what we had planned for the network and the development to ensure that all the right people are in place. Here we think about the prioritization, and you and your programs and your development programs on the territory will have to work together. The 4 priorities are here. Number 1, it should be to make the zones very safe where there are a lot of users. Firstly, it's safety. Everything that was identified on the intersections that where we had to put into other measures for where schools are located, the seniors' residences, that's priority number 1. And as well to complete the utilitarian network. So we must need a skeleton on the territory to have an efficient network for transportation. So the little sections that are missing were identified, and that would be our priority. Number 2 is to complete the active transportation network that is non utilitarian. So that's the rest of the network. Priority 3, here we have to modernize the existing utilitarian network. What kind of develop will we do in such a network? We have existent infrastructure. We have a certain width with the development. So that should
refaire, par exemple,
be a priority to come
des projets, par exemple,
and
de la rue. Mais là, c'est le fun
redo
de repenser à
that type
comment
of
on peut,
network.
de se dire comment on peut le bonifier. Ah oui,
We could
comment
make
on peut
it
faire en sorte
better
que ça devienne
for
une
active
ville sociale dans les trottoirs avec,
transportation.
par exemple, des nouveaux trottoirs.
Perhaps it could be a cycling
Dernière,
path with
dernière
new
étape,
sidewalks.
là, c'est
And
ça.
fourth priority,
C'est des bonifications secondaires. C'est les
we
derniers
need
petits
secondary elements to make it better. That would be the last step. So we're identifying
dernières actions là, à mettre
the
en place.
last actions to take.
Donc, ça fait le tour de la présentation que
So
j'ai
that's
de
it
l'organisation.
for
Mais si
my
jamais vous voulez
presentation.
ajouter
It's
quelque
much
chose,
more
vous pouvez.
detailed, of
Il y
course.
a beaucoup d'interventions proposées, vous allez voir.
There are a lot of
Vraiment,
interventions
un
proposed,
travail
and
très
we've done a lot of very hard
l'équipe
work.
de travail de la ville.
The
On a vraiment identifié
team, the
pour
municipal
chaque
team, for example, who identified each intersection and what to do in the long term, how to develop it the best, and what can we do to ensure we complete the network.
Merci.
Thank you. Question from councillors. Councillor Latin, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for this presentation. It's an excellent document, and there's a lot in there. Of course, we would have a lot of questions, but we shall limit ourselves so the meeting doesn't last too long. But we could come back to you. With your initiatives, what I really like is safety. That's number one for me. And we have initiatives to cut down the speed at safe intersections and lighting too of the trails. That's very interesting, especially if we want an active transportation trail and the extension too of the network of our trails. It's important. I have a couple questions I didn't see in this plan of the connectivity. Did you identify? I mentioned it the other night at the public meeting. Did you identify the possibility for the city to acquire or secure certain lots or parcels strategically to be able to connect our trails in the future or extend our network? You can answer this, and I'll have another question. No, with respect to active transportation plan, we didn't go that deep into those details. We give you the action plan with all the lanes that are priority, and then we'll identify which one should be secured, and then we'll have a preliminary evaluation according to the budget. So it will allow you over the years to say, okay, this year we're going to do this particular thing. But we didn't get to that level of detail. I can add as well that we started the analysis of the priority one, and we have rights of ways that we'll have to acquire or the acquisition of land. I wanted to mention that it's important at one point with the speed that the city is growing. There are places where we can't connect because we have not been proactive. Thank you for your answer. My other question is relating to the map where you showed the trails that were asphalted or not. How do you determine if the trails should be asphalted, paved, or not? I would say that's a very political question. Every time we do this type of mandate, that's always the big question. It's very difficult at this level to make that choice. We discussed with Luc that what we could do with this mandate is to identify which ones should be paved according to you. So we identified that everything that was utilitarian should be paved, and other parts of the network where there were public consultations and the community had something to say about it. So we identified them as potentially paved. The rest of them, the plan says that each time we'll need an input from the population. It's very sensitive when we're in a sector where people want to go jogging and they want gravel. And to come and pave that, it would take another phase of precise consultation. We didn't get there yet. You'll see the other types of surfacing, but we didn't determine if they should be paved or not, but we gave you the steps to take to determine it. It's hard to please everybody. I walk a lot and I do cycling as well. And some of my friends that say that take bikes, they say, well, I hope the city will pave it. And then for runners, they don't want it paved. So one of my other questions is where they are paved right now, will there be a border for runners just beside it so it could be shared? Is that something you've thought about? We didn't take that into account, but it's an excellent point. We should see if we could have a solution before the final document. Perhaps in your toolbox, you should propose this type of trail. Perhaps one of them could take it into account the needs of both types of users. Another element as well, if we pave or not, is the snow removal. Often municipalities to remove the snow, they need the trails paved because there's erosion in a lot of trails. And when we do the snow removal, we affect the quality. It's not an easy discussion. It's not an easy decision. We've had a lot of discussions. My last point, if you're going to pave the trails, could it be a loop? Because we have different types of bikes. We have hybrid bikes. If I have my trail bike on paved trails, I have small tires and I can't go on a part that's not paved. So that's important to know. We'll need the whole loop done the same way. Yes, that's an important element of the report is the connectivity of the network. That's very important. Thank you and congratulations. This is excellent work. I was happy to see this document.
Merci, Monsieur le
Thank
maire.
you, Councillor Boudreau.
Ouais, vraiment, je lisais ce document-là, puis
I
j'étais
read this
vraiment contente.
document and I was
J'avais
very
entendu parler
happy
de ça, j'avais très hâte. Puis
and looking
j'espère qu'on va
forward
avoir une
to
solution.
it. There are excellent solutions
L'exécutif va voir
and
des choses,
perspectives.
par exemple, je trouve
However,
ça qui manque, puis je pense
a
que
few things are missing, and with time, I think we can
ça, on
solve
avait eu
that
ce
problem.
document-là jeudi, fait que
We
peut-être
received this document on
relisons
Thursday, so if we have a few weeks to reread it, we'll find other things
il
in
y a
it.
certains points qui me frappent,
Certain
puis c'est
points are
concernant les
obvious
grosses
to me,
artères.
especially the
J'ai
large
jamais
arteries.
possédé de voiture,
I never owned a car,
différemment.
so I live in a different manner, so to
À la
speak.
marche ou
I usually
j'ai
walk,
d'autres moyens de me déplacer où je vais dépendre des autres parce que
or other people
le réseau n'est
perhaps
pas encore
give me
fait.
drives
Et puis,
because the network is not in
c'est
place.
ça, quand je garde la Champlain, par exemple,
And when I look at Champlain Street, it's a large artery,
des idées qui vont se frapper là, entre les conducteurs puis
and
les
we could
marcheurs.
have issues between
Mais
the
c'est
drivers of
ça, je dirais
cars and the
qu'on
people that are
se repose
walking.
pas
So on
nécessairement un réseau
Champlain,
cyclable dessus.
there's not a
C'est difficile.
cycling
Moi, j'ai été
network there.
en vélo là-dessus
I was there on a
avec
bike
le fils de mon conjoint.
with
Puis
my
on est
partner's
allé
son,
se promener en plein
and
air.
we
En
wanted to
marchant, on
go
a été
to
voir
the
la ville.
mall
Ensuite,
at
sur ce
Champlain
trajet-là,
Place, and then we had to cross
on
those
voulait se
streets.
rendre, prendre une crème glacée.
And we wanted to go
C'est
for an ice
toujours la
cream,
difficulté, c'est
and
très
it was
difficile
very
dans
difficult.
ces coins-là.
It's really hard
Je
to
pense qu'il va falloir
move around
réfléchir à
this
la
area.
façon qu'on
So we
développe
really have to
des artères
think about
qu'on
these
va améliorer
larger arteries and how to improve
entre autres, parce que c'est
our
très difficile
transportation
quand on voit ça,
service
les
as well.
stations de GES,
Because we
c'est
want to
juste
use
un
fewer
cauchemar.
cars to eliminate greenhouse gases as well.
Mais vraiment, je pense qu'il faudra que je m'assise avec
I
les
think
employés ou quelque chose
I will
pour
have to
discuter.
sit with staff or something because I have a long list of things. But this is excellent work
Très intéressant.
and is very
Avec un autre
interesting.
point,
Another
il y a
point,
une des maisons pour personnes âgées
there's
du Soleil sur
Auberge du Soleil. It's a seniors home on Aucoin Street. I work
Je
there,
sais qu'il y a beaucoup de ces
and
résidents
I know that a lot of those residents walk a
passent le
lot,
long
and they
des
walk
sentiers sur
along
Dieppe.
a trail
Je me disais,
along Boulevard
pourquoi pas
Dieppe,
vraiment
and you don't
on propose
see
pas d'air de repos sur cette
any rest areas
puis je
there.
pense que ça serait bien de
And
l'ajouter
I
dans
think it
cette
would be
partie-là
good to
parce
add
que là,
it to that
on a
part.
proposé une aire de repos directement à la rue au coin, là où c'est situé, mais
There was one on
d'autres aires de repos.
Aucoin Street, but there's no other rest area
Ça, c'est
after
un
that.
travail vraiment hot de
But
faire
it
qui va
is
falloir
excellent work. Thank
Merci.
you. Thank you, Councillor Leboutier.
Pareillement, moi aussi, c'est très excitant.
Me too. It's very exciting. This is very detailed.
Finalement, on a
And finally,
trajet, un plan d'action.
we have an action plan.
Mais pas
Of course, it will change, not only for leisure, but for everybody. I'm looking at Madame Spencer. This will allow us the time to think about what we want for the city. And there are details, but I noticed while I was reading this report, we do not identify Pascal Street as an essential street as critical. But on Pascal Street, we have the aquatic center, and that's an entryway. I think we should revisit that. This is a challenge in Dieppe with the speed on Pascal Street, but we should ensure to access the aquatic center with active transportation. I didn't see it in the report. Maybe it's there, but I just wanted to mention that as well for information purposes. On page 110, you mention the multifunction trail, and we identify the minimum width. What is the ideal? The minimum is 4 meters, but what is a sufficient width that we should propose? In fact, we created best practices. It's a guide for development in North America to separate the different types of traffic. Of course, when you have new projects on your territory, there might be choices to make for right of ways, but right now we have the best standards for the width. Okay, I understand. Usually we look for 12 meters as well for a green space beside the trail. And as Marc-André mentioned, we'll have rest zones as well. So we'll be able to have this type of development on the trail. On this report as well, we have electric bikes and people that I know that bought electric bikes. They're very fast, as well as trail bikes too. And I think the speed should be 15 kilometers in the city. So this is a challenge, electric bikes. Have we considered that on the width on our trails? In fact,
En venant offrir un réseau
we're
utilisable pour
offering
les vélos
a
plus
utilitary
facilement. Fait qu'on vous
trail
présente
for the bike where we could go
un
more
peu
quickly.
ça,
So the first
séparer les vélos de route
skeleton I showed you,
avec un
we
code de séparation
separate
vélo de route.
the pedestrians, and it could be separated as well for trail bikes.
Mais ceux-là vont vraiment être possibles
But it will be possible for people who want to
qui sont priorisés au
go
niveau
a little bit
des sentiers
faster.
récréatifs.
With the recreational trails, we have a development that sometimes they're not paved or they're of curves or more sinuous. So in that case, the development will discourage some people, will incite a certain behavior to better share the trail. So we have an ideal weight for the pedestrian that can be separated in certain cases. Some in that case, it's a little bit tight. Thank you very much. Excellent work. Councillor Goodboe, thank you, Your Worship. My question is about the vision. You talk about 2040 vision. Can you talk about the period of time it takes? 17 years to put into place this type of plan? And what are the factors put into place to accelerate that? Like I said, we have a lot of actions in this document. If it's a vision 2040, it allows you to have a perspective where we can dream for the long term and modernize certain sections too. Those are priorities 3 and 4. For us, it could be a very long time. In 2040 or even in 2035, you could say we've reached
De vos capacités.
our vision. And then you can make evaluations, like Luke said a while ago. The team is already starting to work on priority 1 to evaluate costs and that, but to put it into place, you will get your rhythm as a city and you could attain your vision if there are sufficient investments, but it's political will.
La date de 2040, c'est
Just for information purposes, the 2040 date is something that's been kicked around for 20 years. I think it was in the year 2000 when that plan was put into place. I might be wrong. Look, yes, it just came out. Yes, there was that earlier document. I will go out on a limb here. I think we talked about a municipality in Holland where they decided to have 30 euros per citizen as for an active transportation budget. So if the population increases, then the budget increases. That's just an example. I thought it was an interesting example. We're putting a dollar amount per citizen, and then we invest in our network because we may not have mentioned it, but we're at a point where people are requiring safe infrastructure for active transportation. I think the pandemic, if the one thing that it did is that it grew that demand. People, because people used, they wanted to get out, they wanted to explore their neighborhood, and we saw that the trails in Dieppe and around were used much more than ever. So people are asking for this, and people are investing in bicycles, electric or conventional, is very popular. So it could be a strategy. Okay, thank you all for this excellent presentation. And it means that we have lots of work to do, and we're already half an hour late. That being said, it's good. It means that people are interested, and all that I can hope is that you will also be interested in the other topics. So thank you all. That being said, the next presenters, then Kim Rayworth, you're first up to the plate. Well, yes, I would confirm. It's very exciting. Thank you, Your Honor. It's almost as exciting as the shows at Capitol Theater. I'm a resident of Chantal Street, and I have four bikes. So it's true, the point you mentioned, Councillor Lanting, we have to be sure that if I can't ride them all the time, that I have to put them somewhere so that the continuity is very important. But I congratulate you for this work. It's really something that the residents appreciate. We use it, and it's really very interesting. I'm glad I was here tonight to see that. I'll put my timer on to make sure that I don't go too much overtime. Look, I'm very happy to see you, to be share our activities, how it's going for us. I'm happy to introduce the Nicole Gaudroy, our board chair. I would confirm that I have talked to her often during the last couple of years. She supported us all the way through. I had access to her. I've called her very often during the last 2 years. She would talk about the opportunities and the challenges we've had over the last 2 years on council. We are now embarking on a strategic planning exercise, very exciting. It might mean a little bit dry, but for us to stop and to ask some questions to see where we want the entity to go over the next few years, so that is inspiring for us, and it gets us to look back, to look at the successes we've had in the past and the growth of this body. But also, I want to thank you to see the priority that is to have an organization that is healthy, that we spend a lot of time working at and improving it. Also with me is Geneviève Maltais, our communication and marketing director. Geneviève works, has been on the team since 2006, so clearly she likes it. And together we work to try to deliver the vision that you, the city of Dieppe, have given us 30 years ago. 30 years since the municipalities of Dieppe, Moncton, and Riverview got together and decided that this community, we deserve that. We want that. We want a theater. We have about accommodate 800 people where we could see in our area artists, plays from on all for all tastes, for all discipline. We want that area where the whole community can come and see. So we want to have about 130 to 150 shows per year, and we present about 40 or 50 artists. And this is with the operating funds that you give us, the $75,000 per year that the city of Dieppe gives us, along with the operating funds from the Riverview, 75,000 with the 400,000 from the city of Moncton. That allows us to have our team, Geneviève and I. We work with 12 other people who are there full time in order to ensure that we deliver the services year round. So it's with those funds, those operating funds, that we can get the artists that we're going to present. And with that source of revenue, when we sell tickets or rent. We have our musical comedy that's new for us to produce. Before, our mandate was strictly to present and rent it out, but now we're producing some shows where that was a risk, if you wish. I can't, but a calculated risk, because we had heard that people wanted to see those types of shows. So we got into it in 2016, and it was a important turning point in the history of the capital, along with many other things that Geneviève works hard on to get to have the brand positioning, have a membership program where people in the community attend many times during the year, because the beauty of the programming at the Capitol Theatre is that during a year we see a lot of the music, theater. So there's a lot of opportunities for people in the community to come and visit our theater. I brought you one copy only of our annual report because every time I look at it, you can look at it and then throw it away afterwards if you wish. But it's good to see the results. I know that you asked us to not too much about budgets tonight, but that concludes the fiscal year for us. It ended at the end of June 2021. We are now in our 28th season of programming, but it can give you, it reminds us that despite the enormous challenges that came with the pandemic, that it was a season that was disrupted during the entire 12 months by restrictions and capacity limits and travel and postponements, etc., etc., etc. So the annual report, you can put it in the bottom of the bird cage if you want, but we're happy to share that with you that there were nonetheless 31 shows. We welcomed about 6,000 people. Average attendance was about 70% at the events at reduced capacity. We had some touring shows. We had a fundraising campaign, and that's why we support the community. We have programs where we want to reduce the financial barriers for the members of our community, members of different organizations. For new immigrants such as CAFE, we work with them. We have lots of partnerships, the school boards, etc. So in a year, we offer tens of thousands of dollars of financial support to other organizations in the community, because life is back to normal, and we're so happy with that. And given that we were closed through January, February, part of March, there's still a lot of programming coming. So we have the video clip that we started at the beginning of the season, and I wanted to share it with you tonight. It's 1.5 minutes, but it's an example of the diversity of our programs. These are artists that we book, that we hire with our operating funds that you've given us. So I'm going to play the video.
I've been making myself crazy, buying all the latest gadgets. Something's got a feather whistle and I gotta have it. But I'm afraid that I might disappear into my phone. Toss it all away, I'm going home. Oh, 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 oh. I've worked
Okay.
Ça allait tellement bien. Ça fait que ça, c'est.
So that's the programming that's coming up for the rest of this season. Already dreaming, we're anxious to launch our new season, which will be made public on June 8th. It'll be a big year. There are a lot of artists that are looking for work. We're very busy. In addition, it'll be our 100th anniversary of the original construction of this heritage building. So we also foresee a lot of activities, opportunities for the community to come. Thank you. To come and for we'll have some open house days, etc. So I went through quickly. We really have four sources of revenue. We're a non-profit, but we're still an important economic engine. Our budget is close to $2.4 million. And that's the fourth aspect of our business is our program of awareness, the courses and the programs for the Capital Theatre Academy. They had a good year. They were able to work on their courses under the direction of Melanie Lavoie and Marshall Button, where in a year they get about 300 students. There were summer camps, March break. They were able to do a good job and they had a major impact with more than 66 workshops, community activities, 50 activities online, and so on. The registrations are open now for the summer camp that opened last week, which bring me to the last slide, which brings us the good moments that we've had together in our building. Also want to recognize the work of our volunteers. There's more than 200 who work there, so that people feel a special feeling when they're at the theater that there's a welcome. We try to be aim for level of excellence with the public that they feel they're getting the money's worth, everything's going well. So that's an important part of the experience at the Capitol. And finally, I'd like to thank Councillor Boudreau, who is now on our board. She's very involved. Also, Councillors Brideau and Thibodeau, whom I've worked with in the past. You've always been present. You bring good ideas and lots of support. I don't want to stretch out your meeting, but I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Questions from council? Madame Boudreau. Thank you, Your Honor. Just say that I'm very proud to be part of the Capitol Theatre team. It's very enriching to be part of this team and to contribute to keep the culture living. And as you know, I was strongly attached to this theater. I performed there as a student, so it's very special for me to be part of this team. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Thibodeau. Thank you, Your Worship, or Your Honor. It's not a question. I just want to say that I did look at your annual report. I read it completely, and I think that you've done an exceptional job over the last 2 years, despite the pandemic. So a big thank you to the entire team and congratulations, Nicole. Thank you very much. Nicole, thank you for representing us well. It's been a few years and it's well appreciated. So if there were somebody else, thank you for the excellent presentation. And that brings us now to a presentation from Université de Moncton, which will be presented by the president, Dr. Denis Prudhomme. Good evening and welcome. Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Lapierre, as well as members of the council. Thank you for welcome us to give you a brief overview of Université de Moncton, but mainly to give you an update on the gifts that the funding from the city of Dieppe to the university. As you you've received the presentation. I'll be brief. Just wanted to remind you that in 2022, Université de Moncton in the Maclean's University ranking, we went from 13th place to 11th place, and also our students, in terms of satisfaction of their with their university experience, we're now ranked third among the universities of comparable size. Obviously, we have a ratio of 14 students per professor. There are advantages and disadvantages to that, but it also indicates to us that we have a capacity to grow, which we hope to be able to do in the coming years. University of Moncton is 372 professors, 33 research centers, about 4,000 students per year. And since it was created, more than 50,000 degrees have been given out. So maybe the best news is that 87% of our graduates work in New Brunswick, and 75% of them are working in the county where they were born. So it shows that be able to offer courses in our different parts of New Brunswick an opportunity to do post-secondary studies in their community makes it such that we keep our young people here in New Brunswick. On the Moncton campus, we have a little bit over 800 employees, and about 44% of these are living here in Dieppe, as I do. And I thank you for the improvements that you've made on the Bourke Road, which allowed me to have my take my walk tonight without dressing up like a Christmas tree to avoid getting hit. I think you're to be commended, and I can say that it's been well used since the renovations were done. Also, there's the impact. This is data from 2015, but the jobs created by graduates who develop business, etc. We see that in this area that it's about 3,000 jobs. I would mention that our graduates, 97% managed to find work within 3 months of graduation, and 90% will find work in their field of study. We still have a bit of challenge with our international students who have a bit more difficulty in finding jobs or even in internships, but a large part of that challenge is their competence in their second language, which is maybe less developed. So we've implemented a program to improve their English as a second language to give them the opportunity for more jobs comparable to their Acadian colleagues. In terms of sciences, we have some national level researchers who are still in the top 50 of the research universities in Canada, despite our small size. So this year it's about $14 million in research grants that was consolidated by our researchers here at the university. In the southeast, it's about 12,000 graduates over the years, and in the greater Moncton, we're approaching 10,000 graduates. And once again, as far as the city of Moncton, your contribution to the experience that you've given to students with your grants, and in 2024 it'll be it's been 30 years since Dieppe has been uh, associated with the university. So through the three campaigns, the campaign 1994, 2004, and the last one in 2018, it's close to $1.3 million that the Dieppe has contributed in grants. And that's been through three programs. There's a scholarship program, Ville de Dieppe scholarship or bursary. It's been totaled close to $750,000, and that allows us to offer scholarships year after year to students. And there's also a scholarship fund, and we hope that next year we'll be able to continue will get into the playoffs. But this allows us to give some scholarships to our athletes in all the sports, not just hockey, but in all the sports. So that's and recently the uh, Center of Excellence in Acadian Studies. It's a commitment of $200,000, and with that, as you know, at the university, we have three important fields of research: health, and Acadian studies, and environment. And in the Acadian studies portion, we're going to continue some renovations in the fall to the Acadian Research Center, investments of a couple of $1 million with a generous contribution of $1 million from the McCain family, which will allow us to renovate our research center, make it much more fundable. There's a lot of very popular, not just by Acadians from New Brunswick, but also from the US as well. It will enrich it, improve the experience of these people who use that center. And for the future, a lot of challenges. I I was appointed during the pandemic. I've been there for a year and a half. The good news is that in terms of the number of students, last year we had a 4% increase, and this year it's an 8% increase. In terms of nursing, we have 12% more demand this year than we did last year at this date. So, so an increase in the number of international students, but also the University of Moncton, we always get about 35% of the graduates who graduate our high schools here in New Brunswick with us. So we think that 30% won't do post-secondary study. 33% will go either to college or outside of New Brunswick, and the other 30% will come to the University of Moncton. We're trying to update training programs. We do a lot of work on artificial intelligence, and that's robotics, etc. That's the future. Given the shortage of manpower in every industry, we have a lot of activities in that field. Also, we want to try to. We've had increases in tuition fees and 24% in the last 3 years, which I think is excessive. So we want to mitigate that in the future. And that's what, and we're going to do that. We had a bit of a challenge when I arrived, had the surprise of having a cumulative deficit because of increases in the number of students. But this year, we're going to have a budget with a surplus, a slight surplus for our three campuses if the trend, if the recruitment trend continues. And we also made some application to Heritage Canada, which has some funding available for Francophone universities. So we've asked for $18 million over the next 3 years, and we hope to get some good news on that in the coming days. All of that to say, once again, thank you for your contribution on behalf of our students. As you know, university studies are expensive, and all our students are not don't have the opportunity to get uh, uh, financial support from their family. So you play an important role in their accessibility to university so that they can get that experience. And thank you very much. I must say that when I look around the table, there are many graduates of the University of Moncton around the council table and among our staff as well, the city staff. So we're certainly very aware of the necessity and the need for the University of Moncton. Myself, the three of my daughters studied there. So we've all made our contributions, and there's another generation coming up behind. So thank you very much for your commitment to our community. It's greatly appreciated. That being said, are there any questions from council? Madame Boudreau. Thank you,
Tantôt, vous avez
Your Honor.
mentionné qu'il y avait
Earlier, you
les
mentioned that there was some
les personnes
difficulty
qui
for
arrivent de
the
l'international
international
trouver du
students
travail.
to
Est-ce
find
qu'il y a
work.
d'autres
Are there
partenariats qu'on peut faire
other
entre la ville de Dieppe
partnerships
et
that we
vous
could have between the
pour
city of Dieppe and you
favoriser
in
l'intégration
order to
avec
facilitate the
quels sont
integration?
les partenariats actuels?
And what are the current partnerships? There's a working group that which includes representatives of the university along with the city of Moncton and the city of Dieppe. But there might be something, and it's not necessarily Dieppe, but it could be the federal government through CAFI, which would be focused for adults, those that are have their resident permits as resident, that could be useful to the international students to facilitate their integration during their studies, to get them closer to their community. And it's a file that we're going to be working on to try to open up those services to make sure students get them. Thank you. Thank you.
questions?
Any other questions?
Vous êtes chanceux.
You're lucky.
Vous avez été de toute évidence très clair dans
You
votre
were very
message.
clear in your
Alors,
message,
merci encore une
obviously.
fois
So thanks again
d'avoir partagé cette
for having
information avec
shared
nous et
that
toujours un
information
plaisir
with us.
vous
It's
revoir.
always a pleasure to
Merci
see
et à
you
la
again.
prochaine.
Thank you. Good evening.
Alors, la prochaine personne au bâton.
The
Alors,
next
je vais
up at the
commencer le
plate.
baseball tout de suite.
Oh, no, sorry, I'm thinking baseball here.
Les gens du CAFI, Angèle
People from
Lausier,
CAFI,
Marcel
Angèle
Gauguin.
Lausier and
Bienvenue.
Marcel Gauguin. Welcome.
Parfait. Ben, bonsoir tout le monde, Monsieur le
Great.
maire.
Good
Merci de
evening, everyone.
l'invitation.
Your Honor,
Conseiller, conseillère,
thank you for the.
grande comme ça. Et
I'm
voilà,
a
vous
little bit
m'entendez
taller.
bien.
There you go. You can hear me
Alors,
okay?
on est content d'être ici ce soir et peut-être
We're
parler
happy
justement
to
de la
be here
question
tonight and
d'immigration
to
de
talk a
l'UQAM.
little bit
Le
about
sujet a
immigration. We
été
saw that the
retenu et
subject
développé un
was
peu de
been
conversation. Donc, c'est
reflected
vraiment
over
intéressant. Je pense que
the
vous allez aimer ça
conversation, so it's
entendre.
quite interesting. I think
Donc, je me présente,
our
Angèle
presentation is timely.
Lausier,
So I am
directrice
Angel
générale au
Lozier,
CAFI.
GM
Vous
at
savez, on est
CAFI.
maintenant à Dieppe là,
As you
depuis le
know, we've
printemps
been
dernier.
at here, our office here in Dieppe since last spring.
Centre technologique. Et voilà.
So
Donc,
I'm not
j'imagine que les membres connaissent
too much of
déjà
a techie, but I imagine that
CAFI
the
comme
members
organisme à but
know
non lucratif
COFFEE as a
qui dessert une
nonprofit
population francophone dans la
organization which
région du
serves a
Sud-Est. Nous
francophone
sommes
population in
ici
the
pour
southeast New Brunswick. We've been
justement
here
l'accueil des immigrants
to
francophones lors de leur
welcome
intégration
francophone
économique et
immigration and to
sociale.
help them in their social, economic, and cultural integration.
Nous avons deux
We
bureaux
have
pour le
two
CAFI desservant
offices
la
for
région du
CAFE
Sud-Est, dont un
to
ici
serve
dans
the
la
region,
région
one
de
here
Dieppe. Mais
in
nous avons
Dieppe,
aussi depuis maintenant
but we
4 ans un bureau ici
also
dans la
have
région de Cap-Pelé, qui dessert
another
la
office
région
in
de
Cap
Chaudiac,
Pelé. We've had that
Beaubassin-Est
for 4
et
years,
la
and that
ville de
serves
Dieppe.
Shediac, Cap Pelé, Beaubassin Est.
Donc, au CAFI, ce qui est intéressant, on
At
a presque
Cafe, what is
13
interesting,
employés,
there were
25
24 employees,
étudiants de
25 soon,
10 pays
were
différents, donc 17
originally from
pays
10
francophones,
different
donc c'est très
countries. Some of
intéressant.
them are
J'ai
newcomers and they're very
travaillé
important for our
longtemps dans
region.
l'organisme
Even within
New-Brunswick.
our organization, we want cultural diversity.
Donc, le CAFI a maintenant 16 ans.
Cafe is
Nous
now
avons
16 years
environ
old.
250
We have around
francophones, mais aussi on a des références des
1,200
frontières, comme vous savez.
francophones coming in every year.
Depuis là, avril dernier, on est rendu
So
à plus de
since last
760
April, we have
francophones à travers le pays.
760
Nous sommes aussi le plus grand
persons that
centre
are
d'intégration
francophone,
francophone au
and we're
Canada.
the biggest center for welcoming
Et donc, on a eu
francophones
l'occasion de venir vous voir
in the
ce soir.
region.
On voulait vous parler
This
d'un nouveau
evening, we
programme
wanted to
qui a
talk to you
été
about a new
décidé lors de la
program
conférence des
offered at
directeurs indépendants.
CAFE.
Donc,
It's a
l'objectif, c'est
navigator, good
le suivant.
start.
C'est une personne en
So
poste qui est financée par le
the objective is
pour
financed
améliorer les services préalables à l'emploi
to
pour les
improve services for
immigrants.
employment for
Donc,
newcomers. When
recherche
they
d'emploi
come,
pour
they
les
look for
francophones qui ne
jobs,
connaissent pas les programmes
they
sociaux
need
à
help,
l'emploi
they don't
ou
know
cherchent
programs
des
and
emplois.
services and where to look for
Donc, ce qu'on
jobs.
remet au niveau
So
des
how
CV,
can or how to send CVs, etc. So we have responsible people now at CAFE to help these people.
On trouve toujours important de
It's
rappeler
always
que le but
important
non lucratif aussi
that we're a nonprofit organization and we have a mandate to educate the community. So we're always open to give presentations to schools or businesses or other organizations on multiculturalism. So if you hear of anybody in the community that needs it, we are uh, we can give them. We are always looking for volunteers as well, and a lot of our programs are offered by volunteers. Without these people, we couldn't offer some of our programs. So I always want to underline the importance of our volunteers. As you know, Cafe these past few years has had many directors, and I wish I could stay there for many years. I started in August, and in the first months, it was a reorganization, and we had the pandemic, so our team had a lot of challenges respecting the pandemic, and we had a new employees as well, and we lost some for other reasons than COVID too. So let's hope this is a new wind here. We have an office here in Dieppe, and if anyone is interested, you can come and visit our installation. We also wanted to talk to you about the needs of newcomers as well. This last year, we heard, and you won't be surprised, that one of the needs is housing in the region. It's very difficult for them to find housing. Rent is very high as well. So that's quite a challenge. We spoke a while ago about transportations for newcomers. It's difficult. We have people, newcomers that don't have a driver's license. It's hard to get them, and as well as public transportation is a challenge as well. Um, I bring notes. Sometimes I forget them. And also, it's the job search as well. It's difficult. We spoke of language as well. The newcomers, be it international students or newcomers, sometimes they don't have functional English needed for work. And also, their skills are not recognized. I also wanted to mention that on our board of directors this year, Marcel is a member of our council. We have a new initiative. This year, we have 6 sub work committees to identify priorities in our organization. We have human resources. Of course, we have challenges for retention of employees. As well, we want a diversity of financing funds, and we're looking at different models as well. And we want to work on marketing and communications to promote our organization in Dieppe. We want people to know we're there. It's important that people know us. Uh, we want a committee of Acadian citizenship. We want them to own the citizenship of the city, but to be part of an Acadian community. And as well, we want a file on governance of the organization. Other objectives for the next year as an organization, we're ready to do a strategic planning for CAFE. The one ended at 2021. We want to do it again over the next year, and we want a consultation process. And we hope that the city can participate as well as volunteers and our partners for the next year. And we want to study our financing structures as well to see what our charity number is. We want more financing. And to finish, another project we wanted to start this year, like last year, we had a multicultural activity, and we want a second edition this year. So we're going to have a committee put together in April to see if we could offer this type of activity. And I think Marcel wanted to mention something about international students as well. Good evening. I'm Marcel Gauguin, Vice President of the Board of Directors. Jean-Guy Viano, that you know, was not able to come tonight. I wanted to mention that the board has three categories. The newcomers, we have 5 members on the board. They've arrived in the last 2 or 3 years, but we also have 5 Canadians on the board, and the 5 last members are professional associations like the city of Dieppe, and we also have people from SANB, and Serge Léger, the mayor of Capelé, is also on the board. I would like to answer Melissa's question about international students. We don't have much financing at CAFI for international students. We have one program in collaboration with the city of Dieppe and the University of Moncton, and it's unique because we teach them a second language. Often there are students coming here from Africa, and when they arrive in Moncton and Dieppe, they study at the community college or at the University of Moncton, but they don't have enough knowledge of English. So when they go to for a work stage or for a job, you need a bilingualism at 6 or 7 level. So it's a challenge to teach enough English to these students so that they can get a job and stay in the region. We have about 750 students at the University of Moncton and another 200 at the community college. Often they have the technical and professional expertise that the employers want. So that's quite a challenge. And we want to add to that, or give more training for English as a second language. We thank you, the city of Dieppe, for your final support, and we want to continue to work with you with your collaboration. Any questions? We can answer them. Any questions for Kafi? No? I guess they asked all the questions for the first presentation, or the this presentation was excellent, so we'll give you credibility for that. Coffee is very important for us in Dieppe, and we're happy to invite you here in Dieppe, and we're very proud. We're a francophone city that offers services in both official languages, and we know it's quite a challenge for the newcomers here in French. And I know at the community college they do a lot of work as well on this question, as well as the University of Moncton. It's more recent for them to get implicated at the same level as the college. But in the long term, I think we'll succeed. So I thank both of you to have come representing Kafi. and we encourage you to implicate as many people as possible to obtain your goals as well as ours. Thank you.
Les commentaires n'ont pas suscité aucune autre question.
No other questions following my comments? So have a good evening and thank you for being here.
Maintenant, on va faire des culbutes et des pirouettes.
Now we're going to do pirouettes and somersaults.
Vous vous sentez visé quelque peu?
You feel like the intention's on you a little bit?
Alors, c'est avec plaisir qu'on reçoit
So it's with pleasure
la représentante du club Extenso
to welcome Club Extenso Rhythmic Gymnastics, Josie Leblanc and Krista Kelly. Good evening. This is the first time I'm here before the city of Dieppe. This is my baptism. And with me is my colleague and president, past president. I'm Josie Leblanc, and I've been president of the club since a few months now, and I'm happy to be here with you tonight to present a beautiful sport, to explain what we do and what our mandate is for the next year. Tonight we're going to talk about who we are and what is rhythmic gymnastics. We'll give you a little course for those of you who don't know this wonderful sport. We'll present mission and mandate, successes of last year and objectives for next year, and some challenges, of course. What is Extenso? We've been there since 2006. We started a small club with a great vision, a few gymnasts, and we grew in great numbers these past few years. We're still a nonprofit organization, and in our team we have trainers that are paid the salary. We're on the executive team. We're parents, and we help putting galas together and events, and we do everything concerning the financing as well. So we wear many hats. We're members of Gymnastics Canada and Rhythmic Gymnastics New-Brunswick. We offer many programs at different levels, and you can progress as an athlete. We have recreative programs, and we have athletes that perform nationally who practice several hours a week. We also have summer camps that we've developed for the athletes. Those that don't know, we're at 299 Champlain Street in Dieppe. It's a great project these last years to have a space. It took us a few years because we have particular specifications like the height of ceilings, etc. And during the pandemic, it saved us because we could continue doing our sport because schools had to close, finish their activities, extracurricular activities. So we were really happy to find this space. Like I said a while ago, we have more registrations over the years. We have marketing, and our athletes are best ones to talk to their friends. And so we keep growing because of that. We're happy to say that we're the biggest club in New Brunswick with the numbers of athletes. We have national athletes, so it's our strength. And to give you an idea of the figures, our competitive athletes, we have 85 gymnasts inter clubs for competition. We have 22 gymnasts, and provincial and nationally we have 25 gymnasts. So total of 132 this year. So, what is exactly rhythmic gymnastic? If you haven't seen this sport, it's at the Olympics and it's a complex sport. It's combining many things: dance, ballet, acrobatics, manipulations of things like a hoop, balls, and they interpret the routine with music on a mat, and they perform individually or in a group. And we have both. Performances are always evaluated by a panel of judges. That's why our sport is complex. We receive a mark on the technique, execution, and artistry. What is our mission and our mandate at Extenso? It was to help the youth in our region by learning values of perseverance because it's very complex as a sport. So you have to be very persevering. There's a discipline, and you have to be devoted. And it helps us grow in a healthy body and spirit. We've got many successes in 2021. We well managed all the restrictions and the health plan. And we had visits as well that we passed very well. And we've kept on with our program. Even with all these obstacles, we went virtually as well. We maintained confidence and motivation with our athlete. It's hard to say to an athlete who usually does it in a gymnasium to say, well, now you have to do it in your basement. So it was a lot of challenges for them. We got help from certain sports organizations to help us with that challenge. And we were proud of our athletes who competed at high level at Elite Canada and the national championships. And we've held our first cup extenso. It was very special, and we want to continue with that in the following years. I talked about sports psychology services, and we have a sports studies program as well that's very popular. Athletes are very much taking advantage of it too because it's in a partnership with the schools. As always, we have many goals for 2022. We're going to keep on building on this sport, even with the interruptions due to the pandemic. We're going to support our athletes so they can find their self confidence and motivation. And we want to give athletes the chance to perform regionally and nationally, and we want the sport to be accessible to all as well. And with the help of the pro youth program in the city of Dieppe, we meet these objectives. And being a nonprofit, we always have to follow up closely our revenues. And with events and competitions, we can find financing. Otherwise, we get grants from the city of Dieppe or revenues from registrations. And we want others to join us too. We want new athletes, coaches, and judges as well. Challenges for 2022. financing and operating expenses.
C'est quand même, faut continuer à avoir des inscriptions.
It's important to get a registration because what now we have this new building and we want to continue.
Maintenir tout
We
ça,
want to keep our
je sais que
costs
quand
low enough. We want them to be reasonable. The fees for registration. It's a sport that costs a lot of money,
s'assurer qu'on
and
forme
we
les
want to
athlètes
train the younger ones
voilà,
as
puis la
well.
recherche liée à
So we're always looking for newcomers to recruit.
plusieurs organismes à but non
As with
lucratif,
other
garantir le
nonprofits,
recrutement des bénévoles,
recruitment and
volontiers.
retention of volunteers is always
Les
present.
parents nous connaissent bien,
Parents know as well,
que la porte des parents. Fait que
but we have to knock on other doors aside from the parents as well. And we're learning to navigate with this in uncertainty with the pandemic. And I want to conclude by saying, without your help, the city of Dieppe, we could not offer as Club extends so these programs. Your help gives more accessibility, and we have to worry less about certain things and concentrate on strategic projects. We want Extenso to continue to be a chance for children to grow with our beautiful sport here in Dieppe. Thank you.
C'est bien, merci.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Goodbooth, thank you. Welcome. Thank you for this presentation. I didn't really know Extaso. I would like you to talk about the Extaso Cup and your experience with that. What started that? Did it go well? What is the potential for you to continue to invest your time in this initiative? For Krista and I, if I make a mistake, she can help me because she was there at the beginning. We saw during the pandemic a lot of clubs in Canada were had big competitions in Canada. So we thought, well, we could do it. We're virtual. It's not simple, but it was doable for us to have that type of competition. So we opened up and got people to know us in the province of New Brunswick and especially in Dieppe. And our coaches are passionate and always looking for new opportunities to show the level of our athletes. So it was the opportunity to do it so that people would know us better as well. Did I forget something, Krista? So it was done virtually. Is there potential now to go ahead to have an Extaso Cup that could bring people in from outside as well for competitions? And what would that involve? Absolutely. What I can tell you about installations here, it's a practice gym. It's not a good place for spectators, it's limited. So for us, we will have to go into a school in other spaces, where they have a seating. So it's an event that we appreciate it, but we're going to continue to get better at it too. We want to do it again, and you'll all be invited if you want to come and see us. It's a beautiful event. Yes, I encourage you. Congratulations. Any other questions? I don't see any other questions. I want to congratulate you for your commitment to this sport. I know at some point I was invited and I went to see a competition. It was a few years ago It was a provincial competition, if I remember. And it's like any other organization. When you see the impacts of the volunteers that are often parents and on the organization, we all live through that in our past life with our young ones, and it's great to see that it continues with the parents, because sometimes it can be ungrateful at times, but they always find pleasure to implicate themselves with youth that are participating in a sport that they love. It's important. So thank you again.
Bonne soirée.
And thank you. Have a great evening. Now we're at item 2.5, Soccer Dieppe. Is somebody here from Soccer Dieppe? I thought I had recognized somebody. I changed my look. Tara Marous, welcome. Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Councillors and former candidates to elections, friends, colleagues. It's wonderful to see you around the table. This evening, I, I was supposed to have a colleague with me, but I am here alone. I'm Tal Marous, and I'm president of Soccer Dieppe since 2014. I'm just going to give you a resume of 2021 for Soccer Dieppe, our challenges, our successes, and our goals for next year. This is a slide that's a bit small. We're not going to spend too much time on it. Soccer Dieppe is a non-profit accredited by the City of Dieppe since 2001, with a mandate to give quality soccer to attain objectives for development of each person, its recreation and competition too. We have a program for soccer here in Dieppe. When we talk about the vision, the trainers, the arbiters, and the players can contribute significantly to the performance and results. Soccer Dieppe does not only train but forms leaders for tomorrow. We're putting that into place for all our programs, especially with mentor programs for youth, and then they become employees of Soccer Dieppe at 14 years old rather than doing babysitting. We give them training and they come. So we have mentoring with our technical team. We're always there. We want to give them possibility as well when they're young. I want to thank the province of New-Brunswick with different programs. The city of Dieppe has partnered for a long time with many programs, and as well the Dover Center, where we have our operations. And this thanks to that installation that we've attained our objectives, and the Canadian government.
Pandémie, mais on n'aurait pas pu vraiment survivre la pandémie sans l'apport de nos
We would not have survived the pandemic without the support of our partners, especially our sponsors. We try to keep sponsors who have a link with the club, often local entrepreneurs. So we have Glow, which joined us, and Sparks. They've been with us over. Timbits, among the first who benefited from that Timbit soccer initiative. And we also have other sponsors as well. Our accomplishments in the 2022, so we have see people who have had fun after a number of months where they were locked up in their house almost. Since we started, we worked with our mini soccer is our spinal cord. We say we can't get into competitive. We want to focus on those young people that they have a safe environment, healthy, inclusive, accessible, so that they can develop. And it's for that reason that this year we got a record since 2014. We had 938 registered players, and that is without counting the after class, because this year with the because the school board didn't give us access to the gyms, we couldn't do it. If we had the after school soccer, that's always a program that gets filled up 3 days after we open it. We would have reached 1,038, and that would have brought us back to the golden age of soccer Dieppe, because that's not new. It used to be that we had over 1,000 registrations, so we're just coming back to where we were before. And as you can see, the reason I'm talking about the spinal cord is because 55% of our membership are in the mini soccer program. So that is a good sign, and that's the well, the base of players that we'd like to have. And we've started a program for under three. Imagine coaching kids under three. It's interesting, but it's fun. The parents may not say the same thing, but for me, it's fun. So if we talk about the 2021 season, we're still at 50-50 between boys and girls. And that's very interesting because sometimes it changes, but that's the demographic we live with. But if you can see the annual comparison in 2021, we saw a significant increase, and that's what we're going to focus on for the coming years. Because we estimate that over the next 2 or 3 years, we'd like to get to 1,400 or 1,500 members. But for 1,500 members, we're going to talk about the challenge. What can we do to get to 1,500? As you can see in the photo, we have a young man, grade 10, and those are the types of young people who come and train, coach our young players on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we are present as members of Soccer Dia, but we give the responsibility to these young people who have been trained to train. He was in mini soccer and somebody coached him, and now he's coaching himself. So if we talk a bit more, we can't do anything without coaches. Soccer Dieppe, we have 104 coaches. That's tremendous because we have with Canada Soccer, it's not anybody who can coach. We need a certain license. We need you have to go security clearance. We check references. You have to have no criminal record, of course. So there's a logistic involved, but that's what we need to do. So we have a coach who has a national B license, 5 who have a provincial B license, and 14 who have 4 Canadian licenses. So just as says a lot about the work we've been doing. That's the results over several years, and not just the person who's there, but the team behind them that do the work. Success and rewards for the AAA teams. You've probably seen it on social networks. Last year, we participated in 4 divisions under under 13 boys and under 13, under 15, under 17 girls, and we won all 4. We won 4 out of 6 banners, and that gave us. We were recognized as the elite club by Soccer NB. We have the under 13 boys, and each division we started with 2 teams. So that tells us a lot about the pool of players that we have. And we've always said that in Dieppe we have athletes who play many sports, and we benefit from that. And we're always going to do that. We try to work with other associations to give this chance to the young people. But we don't have just the older ones. We have the under 12. We call it the golden age, but here it's the young people are 10, 11, and 12. So that's for the development. And they deserve the best coaches, and we spend a lot of time with them. And this year, we hosted the provincial championships in Dieppe. And as you can see in the sign, we did some work with our youth. And we said, how do you want to do some branding here in Dieppe? They all said they always wanted the slogan, here is Dieppe. That's shows the pride in welcoming other things. The boys won and the girls came in second and third place. So that's what we're developing future players. In terms of the senior players, the mayor is aware of this for a long time. This is the first time since 4 years that we didn't win the provincial championships, but we're going back next year. We plan to win it back. We won it for 3 years in a row, but we won the championship and the women's, and next year we'd like to win that to go to the national championship. Unfortunately, even in sport, we have an obstacle. The majority of the players who are in soccer are graduates of the University of Moncton, people who immigrated here, and given that they haven't got their permanent resident status, they can't participate in the national championship, Canadian championship. And we won 3 times in a row, but we couldn't go. We didn't have enough young people who could go. But we were there with the under 15 girls in 2019. That was our big, we were fourth in Canada and we won the prize for the team of the year at the national championship. Unfortunately, COVID impacted on us. If not, we would have had more members. The other thing I want to mention is the financing of the new field. We had a lot of people who were around the table, including the mayor who was present and a few councillors who were present for that announcement. And that for us and for many of the young people who were there in black, they were talking to me about that field since they were 10 years old, but now they're working it. Well, when we're going to do, we said we're going to announce it and then we'll see. But for us, it's a good start, and the future will be better. I don't want, as far as reward and the player of the year, Talaganya, Danny Savoie coach of the year, René Gauvin coach of the year, Brent Lewis, who was the game changer award. We had the female team of the year, under 17 girls, and the manager of the year, Sophie Guaron. And the other thing that we had was the first year that a New Brunswick team placed 11 players in the 3 university leagues in Canada. Often we talk about the Blue Eagles, Aigle Bleu. I would have preferred if they'd all stayed, but unfortunately we couldn't because it's a question of bursaries. Who offers what? And unfortunately, on the Aigle Bleu, the budget is limited, and we would have hoped that there would have been a girl who would have had the city of Dieppe bursary for that, but we have 3 who will go to Okanagan, 1 going to Carleton. She was the player of the year last year, and we have 5 who will stay in the SUA, 1 at Mount Allison, 1 at St. FX, and 3 with the Aigle Bleu here at Moncton, without counting the players from Dieppe who are currently with the Aigle Bleu. So that's where we are. We'd like to have more on for the boys. We were not able to do it because they're only in grade 11, so it'll be next year. So our goals for 2022, hope to have the same results, but the first objective is to beat the registration record and participation from 2020. So this will offer more programs and facilitate accessibility to maintain the growth of the club. We remain to be the club that has the lowest registration fees in New Brunswick, and that's to ensure accessibility. We couldn't have done that without the support of our partners, and then a young player shouldn't have to think too much before joining. We have lots of programs such as Jumpstart, but the immigrants, they're not aware of these programs, and often they'll just say $300 is too much for me. So that's where with General Willett, our general manager, we were able to anticipate those discussions, do more marketing, use the social media to reach out to those people, guaranteeing better participation in the provincial and national championships. This year we have the potential to go to the nationals with three teams, and we have the chance also to be there with the seniors. Participation is expensive. That's for the organizers and Madame, previous Madame Nadeau with her experience with Ringette. But we also have to create the environment to do it. When we went to the national, we were the only team that had just practiced on natural grass. And now, if you want to practice on artificial turf, you got to go to Moncton. We have last Friday in Crossmore. So at some point, and if we pay more, then the registration costs go up. So it's always a dilemma for us. We will also go through a strategic planning exercise. We had started that, but COVID came. We had to adapt. But the other thing that's important is to get to level two for the Canada Soccer recognition. They have a manual that deals with the different administration, safety, and we have to answer a lot of questions in order to get the recognition from Canada Soccer. I like that process because we know what's going on in sports. There are bad stories here and there, and we're a nonprofit. We have limited resources. We have to manage it well, and that program imposes a good structure on us. So we were the first in the province to get to attain the accreditation as a supplier, but we're currently working to get to level two provincially. We will be the first club to achieve that in New Brunswick, and then we'd like to get national accreditation. And once again, even the infrastructure is part of what has to be taken into account. We had to restructure our technical team. We have the same coach, but as you can see, we have Talia, who was a professional player, Alexandra Roy, who is still plays in senior soccer, but also plays with the Eagles. We have Jean-Yves Savoie, a former coach with Dieppe. He was in Saskatchewan, but he's back and he's part of our team. Challenges for 2022, outside infrastructure. We've always mentioned that the improving the current structures, improving the sod, having improved washrooms, and we need some water. At Dover, there's no water. If we want to reduce our ecological, if we had a drinking fountain, it would be great. The other thing we don't have at Dover are washrooms. And if you want to visit our portable toilets in July or August, it's not a great experience. And we have some people. I had messages from a pregnant woman who could not come with their children because they couldn't use those bathrooms, portable toilets. I I don't want to use them myself. So the quality of the sod, I just want to mention something. When we hosted the under 12 AA championship, Jonathan Lebreton's team did an excellent job. It was a last minute request. They were there. They were texted them. They were already there. The problem with the Dover field is there's not much drainage. So as soon as we get 2 millimeters of rain, they're closed. Field is closed, and then we're stuck with cancellation of the games, and that's the problem we have with Dover. It's far away, but I like it. I think it's good to have four fields at the same place. Other clubs don't have that. The capacity of the current infrastructure does not respond to the needs of the club, especially with the forecast growth. You see Dover, we have 5 fields, 4 soccer fields, and then one, we call it the kite field. That field, there's no post or anything. We use it for the ones because under 3 you don't need posts. But Tuesdays and Thursdays, all the fields are filled, they're packed. The teams can't practice at Dover because we have to give access to the young ones. And in addition to that, the city requires that we close one field per week. And it's good for looking after the field, except for mini soccer. Because mini soccer, you know, they're small kids, they're not going to do much harm. But even with that, we can't. With the numbers that we have to go out of Dieppe in order to have more time. Mathieu Martin is not usable, unfortunately. And we even have referees who complained who said we can't guarantee a match that is played on that field. They're scared of somebody getting hurt. There were holes, etc., so that we have to look elsewhere. So improvement of infrastructure in the absence of turf requires us to move some operations in Moncton. In 2021, Soccer DF paid 8,800 for using the Medavi Coble Stadium, and we paid 4,800 for the utilization of Dover. So if we just see the difference between the two, it's fairly serious. And we haven't talked about the sports dome. Now, in April, when we start our spring program, we can't do it. Dover is not available before the middle of the end of May. So we do everything in Moncton. We get to Moncton, the Medavi Blue Cross Stadium, it's always taken by another sport for which the field was built, and we're not accredited by the city of Moncton, so we're always at the bottom of the ladder. That puts us in a delicate situation. Now, if we talk about inside infrastructure, the lack of infrastructure interior in the region, there's only one place we can go, it's the Dome in Moncton. The only place we can have a winter program. But at Soccer Dieppe now, we just have 5 weeks off, 2 weeks at Christmas, and then Thanksgiving and another week. And we operate the rest of the year. So in 2020, we paid $15,200 to use the Moncton Sports Dome and $1,200 for utilizing the school gyms. And that's just because the school board had closed and they said, no, we can't do it. That was just at the beginning when they gave us access, but after that, we lost that access. So the problem, this is not just with Dieppe, is that there's a lack of infrastructure where we can play 11 on the side. And I think that there's a big potential if the city of Dieppe have it, we would become the sports center for the whole province because there is none at UNB. They just have a bubble over 1/3 of the field. Now they constructed one in St. John, a field house, but it's not 11 on 11. Nigadoo, a former arena like Centennial, where they put some turf. So currently, that's the opportunity we have. Summerside just announced that they would have a dome, full-size field and turf for $5 million. I think it's quite interesting, and we hope that someday we'll have it. Canada Games, it's coming. Maybe that could be a possibility if we seize the opportunity. For the challenges for 2020, it's the synthetic surface. Despite the announcement, there's still some challenges. We have to mention it to council. It's the site. As you know, the site is at the Mathieu Martin. We like the school, but we don't want to have the same scenario that last year where the district school board decided that nobody would come on our field that belongs to the school board. What happened? Our rivals on the other side, the river, had 1,400 members with 4 hours on a field. How can you serve 1,400 members with 4 hours? Impossible. And that's the fear that we have, is that you just got to go through someplace. And often the fields in the school district are only given after the end of the school year, and then they take them back in early September. Well, for us, our program starts in April, so we don't know how that could work. The other thing is parking. If Dover, if the parking lot of Dover can't meet Soccer Diep's needs, we would have a hard time doing it at Mathieu Martin because there's no access to the parking there. The absence of a second synthetic service prevents us from bidding on national championships. So these are discussions that I've had with the staff from the city of Dieppe. We don't just want the provincial. We want to put Dieppe on the map and be able to host a national championship. It's doable. I've seen places that hosted them in Alberta and elsewhere, and I've said, well, why not us? I've attended four. And I'd say, why not for us? But the problem is that Dover, we don't have any facilities to welcome those people. It's good, yeah, logistically, but you don't have washrooms to birth anything. So the best way to have them is to invest in the college. And imagine if we could have the synthetic field at the college and the synthetic field at Mathieu Martin, and it's in downtown Dieppe, very close to everything, hotels, everything. That would be the best location to have it. And also, if we have a center here with a synthetic service, we will be the biggest club in southern New Brunswick. Oh, well, maybe in New Brunswick because we'll be serving a large part of Moncton as well. So that brings more people to us. So that's the presentation that we had. There are other challenges, but that would take too long. So I want to respect the agenda. I would also like to mention that for Soccer Dieppe, we are the only, this is the only, soccer in New Brunswick is the only sport where we offer from under three to the seniors. They're part of this structure. And that causes us some problems because the majority of the municipalities consider the seniors as a separate thing. Now, if I want to make the sport accessible, $20 it would cost, it's going to cost $60 for the seniors for the same field, same quality. And that if we can work on it to make it more accessible, it'll help us to get more people. So that's it now. If you have any questions, thank you. Questions from council. Mr. Thibodeau, thank you. You mentioned in your presentation that there was a problem with the management of the field at Mathieu Martin, that they are the ones who control the times for the field. My question is not necessarily for you, but for the city. With the money that we are investing, will we have the management to say, or what's the arrangement with the school district? Have we negotiated anything? Mr. Richard, thank you for the question. There are some discussions currently with the school district and the school in order to develop an agreement, and it'll come here. It will be an agreement on access. We're very aware of the challenges that Mr. That Tao has mentioned tonight. So there are some discussions currently taking place to hopefully leading to an agreement. Thank you. It would be good to negotiate that before we put the shovel in the ground. Thank you. Any other questions? Madame Leboutier. Thank you. It's incredible the success you've had. We know that all these other groups, we know that it requires a lot of volunteer work, a lot of time. You need an infrastructure that people work, the employees. We have a vision with the council as well. We wanted it's a sport that allows social integration for all ages. So It's a model to follow. Thank you very much and keep up the good work.
Dans le même sens, merci pour
Thank you as well
implication
for
personnelle, mais
your
aussi
personal involvement, but
tous
also
vos collègues pour
all your
ce
colleagues
développement de nos jeunes.
for contributing to the development of our youth.
Bien des jeunes, toujours la seule chose qui manque, c'est
For many youth,
l'opportunité. Puis c'est quelque
often
chose
the only thing lacking is an opportunity, and that's what you're giving them, an opportunity to do things well, to learn how to play
de
as a
participer en
team,
équipe. C'est
to
toujours important pour le
participate in
développement
a
de la
team.
personne.
It's certainly important in the
Merci
development
pour
of
tout ça.
the person. And thank you for all
À la
that.
prochaine.
Thanks.
Madame Frigo, s'il vous plaît.
Madame Frigo, please.
Bonsoir.
Good evening.
On va parler des scouts de Dieppe.
We're going to talk about scouts here in Dieppe. Good evening. I was recently, I haven't been involved with Dieppe Scouts for very long. I'm chair of the board. My son just started this year. So for the people who don't know the Scouts, we've had Scouts here for at least 50 years. My husband said he was in Scouts 50 years ago at École Miro. And I would say that with the pandemic, there's been an increase in enthusiasm for the Scouts, the fact that people had to have more outside activities. We had to refuse some young people this year because we're in a building at the Rotary Park, and with the pandemic, there were some limits on the number of young people that we could entertain. The mission of the Scouts is to promote and to develop the development of young francophones so that they can reach their full potential as individuals, as members of their committee, and as citizens who play an active role in society. In Dieppe, there are 3 units that are mixed. We don't separate out the girls and the boys, not like in my day. I think that Colin is the same age as I am. In my day, they were separate. We have 3 groups of beavers, second and third year. Then we have Wolfpack, and then adventurers. For those who may not know, because people don't all know the building is, it's at the Rotary Park. I think that before the construction of that, we had activities at the main pavilion. The Scout building is well equipped. There are 2 meeting rooms. There are well equipped kitchen. There's a gym in the basement, and we have a lot of space outside for activities. There's a separate parking lot, but it's not where the main pavilion is. It's further to the right. And it's at the starting point for a couple of short trails. 2020 to 2022, there wasn't too much activity because of the pandemic. Last year, they had about 3 months of activities between the periods when it was suspended. It caused some financial implications. We had to refund some fees, etc. This year, we're at full capacity. As I said, we refused some young people, especially in the pack. Since March, we can start up again. I know that we have people. There'll be some winter camps and things that were postponed.
We took advantage of the community funds from the province, but with the scouts, we must take care of a building. We don't have much revenues. I'm just new, but I see that the last few years we're asking for financing, but we have to put it on the building. And it's about 30 or 35 years old, so we have to do a lot of renovation. We had to buy a thermal pump last year. This year we had to redo the electricity inside. So we're having requests for financing, and sometimes it doesn't always go to the youth. But this year I'm going to try to find another type of financing. So we're going to rent from another organization in Dieppe for losing their spaces. So we're going to look at other opportunities. And the mandate of Scouts is to give to the community as well. And we have projects this year. There are people in seniors' homes. There was a project at Christmas time. They made Christmas cards, and there's a lot of green projects in the spring too, cleaning parks and such. And this year we'll have a new program with the municipality. This year I had approached the city because for the trails we didn't have snowshoes. We don't have much equipment. So we started a program for snowshoes at the Rotary Club. We talked with Pauline, and we have hot chocolate as well. And next year, the Scouts will be doing the programs for hot chocolate, and I'll supply the coffee to the parents. So there's an enthusiasm and a lot of fun. And we have challenges with respect to renovations. We have an old cabin that is going to be destroyed next year, but we need a place to put things away, or a garage or something. And right now, there's the garage. We open the door to put snowshoes in, and the kids are outside. So we're going to try to develop a project for another little building. I have a few photos here of this year for beavers, second and third year, or grade 2 or 3. This is last year. We gave them certificates. And adventurers are older. They use the space a lot less. And we have partnerships with different organizations for activities. Orienteering in New Brunswick, a Moncton Club. We have SPCA as well. And this year, you should have seen the dogs, therapy dogs that go into schools. People come to work with youth to show them. So we have a lot of activities respecting social engagement, commitment. We have outdoor activities as well. We have winter camps, and there's a lot of outdoor activities. I have examples here of different types of learnings, work groups, values, commitment, education. And Soccer Dieppe was talking a while ago about pro youth, and we have youth that can take advantage of financing from pro youth. Our challenge right now is the capacity, because we have to refuse youth. We would like to have more. We'll see after the pandemic, and we'll see with directions with Scouts Canada. We have restrictions because of COVID, and we have restrictions respecting the work, the cleaning, and financing. We need to finance activities for youth. Well, do you have any questions from councillors? I would have been disappointed if Councillor Brideau had not asked a question. I didn't want to ask a question, but I wanted to congratulate you. I know what youth have to go through because I was a scout from my whole life. When I was looking at the beaver photos, the first years I arrived in Dieppe, we won a national prize saving an endangered species, and I did it with the beavers. And one of my colleagues, Bernardine Richard, was working there as well, and we had a great project, and we had built little houses for swallows, and we put them everywhere in the Rotary Park, and we planted trees as well. A lot of people didn't know that we did that at the Rotary, and I haven't even gone back to see how tall the trees are now. But continue your great work. Thank you. Have a good evening. Thank you. Councillor Leboutillier. I have a question. Thank you. You were talking about a while ago. Thanks for the presentation. It's great information. And I realized that I didn't know there was a basement in that building. And you said that the money you receive usually goes on the building and repairs, and now the next few months we're doing the budget. So what does a realistic amount look like so we could have an impact? What would it look like? I know that the city had a contract for 5 years, and there was a fixed amount of 6,000 a year, and renewed for 1 year only. And I think Mr. Melanson said last week, I listened on the web, I think it'll go ahead according to projects now. The fixed financing, technically, we're looking at other financing models, and financing it could be like for the storage shed, but we decided to concentrate on renovations, and I know there are needs for the use of the space. A lot of people are looking for spaces, and we have the the same prices as City of Dieppe, but we haven't done any promotion. So this year we're going to try to renovate the basement so that it could be used. We could have conferences there as well. And we have a kitchen, and scouts don't always use it either. The other example, the club that we're going to rent from, they had an event each year, and now that we can use that space, they were at the county college before, and they're going to rent from us. We're going to try to be creative. Thank you, Councillor Melanson. I just wanted to add that Pauline know about this provincial program, and it could help you buy a shed. There are funds in the province that are available, and you could get a certain amount of financing to buy that. So look, I'm going to ask you to share that information. It could be up to about 50% as well. So we have those opportunities every now and then. Other questions? No? Thank you for your presentation and continue your good work with the Scouts, adventurers, and all others. Thank you. Next presentation, Dwell House. Maybe we should take a break. You're not all camels like me. 5 minutes.
Nous sommes tous de retour.
Hello again, we're back. Now we're going to talk about the Dwell House. Miss Corinne. Good evening. Yes, we're going to talk about the Dwell House. Firstly, we're going to talk about the seasons, the statistics, comments of visitors, rentals, communications, goals, strategies, and budget. And if we have time, comments and questions. The opening, as you all know, with the pandemic, it hit us at the Dwell House. We opened September 29th, 2020. We opened, we closed many times, every couple of weeks, and we reopened again on June 5th, 2021, to be able to continue for the summer season. So our seasons are fall, winter, spring, from September to April. For statistics, you see we had the pandemic, so we didn't have very many visits. We had a few, 288 during the pandemic. And we had rentals as well of the barn. Comments of visitors, of course, they like using their tablets. Seniors like to use it, and they like the social aspect. They talk to the staff, and they use a lot of the signs as well. They like to visit. They spend about 1.5 hours there. They really like visiting. There's a lot of articles there. And with the children, there are games. We hide hats everywhere. They love it. The parents like it because their children are having fun. It's we have this. We're lucky to have this house in the city of Dieppe, and there's only two older houses, and that's at the Village Acadia, so we're the third oldest house in the region. So for rentals, we have guided tours. We had marriages. The former owner of the Dwell House had a wedding here, and we had organisms like Scaffy that used the barn, and we have card playing too. They're in the basement. And we had videos, newbie Jacques Comeau, and we had an excellent prize from the FMNB and Festival de la Récolte. So we had a lot of things during the pandemic. We also had meetings of the hotel owners in Greater Moncton, and they really liked the basement. So hopefully they'll have other events there. We had the book club, and we had heritage visit as well. And in 2022 for Heritage Month, we had activities every weekend. we could only have 3 visits per Saturday, and the visits last a long time, so we've only had 3. So we had a lot of activities that were canceled because of the pandemic. So for Franco Fat, they couldn't do their activities in the barn. And with our friend Andre Roy, we couldn't do anything with them either for improvisational activities. And then from the card playing for 55 years and older, we haven't had that either. For communications, my colleague is here. They did a lot. They helped us a lot for Maison Etoile. That we have a website, and we have a picture on Highway 15, and we have signs in the municipality as well. We had press conferences, press releases, a new website, and we had promotional publications, and we've had Facebook and Instagram as well. We had promotional items, we had keychainers and postcards, and we're going to develop recyclable bags and coffee cups as well. Our goals for 2022, we want a new committee for management. We want a new plan between now and 5 years, and we want to see what other activities we could have. We want rentals, like a cafe in the basement, and I met people that wanted to have activities there as well. We have a kitchen, but they would have to bring their own food, and they could serve it there. We have activities planned in a couple weeks now, and we hope to have 500 visitors this summer. With the pandemic this year, we know that people are coming to Dieppe, and we have a big show at the end of August, and we hope that people will stay in the area, and we'll have a promotion strategy for Dwell House. We have an artistic direction at the Arts Center. We want to program something with them to do in the barn. So we're going to continue on that. We have strategies. We want partnerships with local artists, and to have free visits as well during the summer for its 70th anniversary. Uh, we want to relaunch the program of the Dwaggle House. During the pandemic, it was open, close, and open, close. So we want to relaunch that again. And we want to show citizens that they can come and visit. Mostly citizens that come, but this summer we would like to add something to get other visitors. And it's the 70th anniversary of the municipality. We need financing, of course. We'll have to work on that this summer. Here are a few photos. You can see you can see all the furniture here. It was built from scratch, but they date from 1841. And they're comfortable. The seniors, they play cards, they sit in these chairs. And we also have benches because it used to be a school, so we wanted to integrate that as well. And the other pictures in the barn, I just wanted to show you what it looked like. Our operational budget for 2022, we have a budget of $150,000, and operations is about 25%, and salaries are 60%. And we get some financing from the federal government. And programming is 15%. So for revenues, we have to see what we can do for the Duomo House. This is my presentation. I went quite quickly because I know we're late. Questions, Mr. Zorwa? The barn, what is the capacity? What kind of events do you want there? Sitting down on chairs, about 60 people. But the fire marshal said we could have 99, but it's a bit tight. In the cafe, you can't, uh, there's no functional kitchen. That's right, but we could bring food in. But there's other things we can do, however. It'd be nice to have that kind of event, temporary events to attract people there. I was thinking of White Rabbit, things like that. Thank you. Other question? I have one. Do you consider the possibility of isolating the barn in some way? At some point, we thought of having a special event there with counselors, and we canceled because it was a little bit chilly inside the barn. I understand it's a barn, but still, could we modernize it a little bit to be able to keep it open longer during the fall season? Maybe February or March when it's less cold out. We gave the message to responsible of buildings, Mr. Camo, and we're going to settle this as well. The floor isn't heated, but it is in the basement because if we have heat, it will rise. I just wanted everyone to understand that we haven't abandoned that space yet. Thank you. So, Nate friendly municipality, that's us. I'm going to change slides here. This is an update for the MADA program. It changed the structure for an age-friendly municipality, a program we have here in Dieppe. We had a directions from council in 20 about this program. It started in Quebec, and there are more than 900 municipalities that are friendly. We started with the MADA program. It was a community of Dieppe seniors that started that.
De présenter notre programme.
We had taken the opportunity to present it, also developed an action plan in September 2012 for 4 years for that program. Why MADA? This is a program that favors active activity for seniors and promotes promotion of health, etc. This program also promotes links between generations, and that's the important link here. It wants to offer services that are close by and accessible, and reduction in isolation by creating these links. It's even more important with the pandemic. our role in the municipality, because it's the municipality that the Friends of the Seniors, so the committee, the programs, as I said, the committee deals with this program. The structure, they hired a coordinator 18 months ago, Bruno Poirier, to deal with all those programs for the province. And now it's required that there's the committee that's appointed by the municipal council would be part of the program, this municipality's Friends of Seniors. This is different spheres of activity. I won't go through them in detail, but those are things that we will be looking at. There are some things we do: community gardens, citizen participation, signs, benches on trails, etc. Things that we do, but those are the different areas where we can work. The committee recommend that we choose two or three of these spheres of activity for the action plan. Can't do everything, because if you try to do everything, you end up doing nothing. So we have to decide which field of activity we'd like to focus on. Next steps, first of all, is to create oversight committee, 8 to 10 people. 8 might be the ideal number. Then the second stage is to evaluate the area and analyze what we need for our seniors in Dieppe, and then to develop an action plan for them. So if there are any questions or comments, but if we want to participate in this national program, we need a oversight committee. We have the committee of the Quebec Seniors Committee. Maybe some people from that committee could be part of this management committee. We'll always have activities for seniors in the You don't have to think that that committee will be dissolved, but there will be a management committee overseeing that activity. Madame Boudreau, thank you.
J'avais juste une question pour
I
le
just had a
comité.
question
Est-ce
for
qu'il y aura
the committee.
quelqu'un du conseil
Will
qui
there be
siégera
somebody
sur
from
ce comité?
council who would be on that committee? Yes. And an example, the mayor Arnold chairs that committee. Certainly, yes, there would be a member of council, because it's for the citizens by the citizens. So we always have some people that we'd like to have. We sent a list, but that's something that would be decided later. Thank you. Mr. Brido. Thank you. If I understand, MADA is not part of the associations recognized by the city of Dieppe. Yes. MADA is the municipality friend of seniors. In other words, the municipality looks at what the needs are for the seniors in Quebec. It's like a steering committee. And then they will tell the city, well, according to the needs analysis, the city will develop an action plan. Look at the things that could be added for seniors. These are associates of the Friends of the Seniors. They don't have to be seniors. It's like the Red Cross could be on it. It's somebody dealing with transportation could be on that. It could be employees from the city. So we have different things that we could look at. We have a list that we've prepared to see who could be on that. Great, thank you. That's a change in direction by the province, because before that it was a committee of citizens that managed this. When did that change? I think it last year, just when Bruno came in, a year and a half, maybe last year. Yeah. Great, thank you, Madame Leboutier. Thank you, Your Worship. My question, and I see that in a positive light, it's It's a almost perfect timing. We just have a recreation plan. We have all the infrastructure, and now we're going to do an analysis of the needs for that strata of our society. So my question is, we are going to hire some experts to support that committee to do the analysis of the needs. It won't be the responsibility of the committee to carry out that analysis. No, I think that be somebody who's hired. We can nominate some members, etc. That will be done through dialogue, Dieppe, and social media. But certainly to carry out the analysis, that won't be us. Okay, thank you. Thank you. I don't see any other anybody else. Mr. Godet. Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question. Might not be a good one. What's the age? What's the age of a senior to? It depends who you talk to. No, no problem getting the job. No, but is it like, is it 55 and over? They see that as 50. Some in the committee say it's 60 and over. Stat scan, and some say it's 55. All right, I'm a senior then. A happy senior, though. Okay, if there are no questions, thank you for the questions, and certainly it's a new file that, for us. So we're gonna deal with it, no problem. Okay, that brings us to the last presentation tonight. Mr. Luc Richard. Oh, we've changed it.
Monsieur Richard va faire le sommaire de la participation publique, mais
Mr.
j'allais juste faire le sommaire des
Richard will
activités
summarize it.
après.
I just wanted to summarize the activities to date.
Donc, le dossier de la
So,
foresterie urbaine, c'est un dossier
the
multisectoriel. Donc,
file
plusieurs
on
secteurs
urban
d'impliquement.
forestry is
Juste
multi-sectorial. Many sectors are
pour
involved.
faire un sommaire, donc,
And
entre
just to
2021,
summarize, in
elle
May
a utilisé les
2021, the
services du
city
consultant
hired
Bruno
a consultant,
Son
Bruno
mandat
Chiquan.
était d'effectuer
His
une
mandate
recherche
was to do some
pour
research
déterminer la
to
réglementation
determine
applicable, faire
the
des recommandations conseillées à
regulations required, make
l'administration. Et il
recommendations
y avait aussi question de
to
préparer
council,
des
and
vidéos de
also questions of
sensibilisation.
preparing some
Donc,
awareness
en
videos.
octobre
In
2021,
October
l'auteur Denis
2021,
fait
last
sa
fall,
présentation au conseil
he made his
avec une
presentation to
proposition de
council with a
réglementation
proposal
qui
on
incluait
regulations
permis
which
pour abattre
included
des arbres sur
permits
propriété
to
privée, ainsi qu'élaborer
cut
un
down a
plan
tree,
concernant le
some
développement
arboricultural studies
mesures
for
de
development,
protection des arbres.
and measures for
Par la suite,
protecting the
il y a des
trees.
questions qui avaient été
Afterwards,
envoyées au
some
conseil.
questions were
Et
sent to
suite à ça,
council.
en novembre et décembre, on a
Following
élaboré
that,
la
in November and
participation publique.
December,
Donc, comme vous
we
savez, en janvier
had
et
the
février, la
participation of
participation
public. As you
publique
know, in
sur
January and February, we had the
Dialogue Dieppe, notre
public
plateforme web.
consultation on
Et
Dialogue Dieppe,
début
our web
mars,
platform.
on a
And in
reçu
early March, we received
les résultats, on les a
the
compilés. Et ce
results. We
soir, on
compiled the
présente les
results, and
résultats et
tonight we
participation
just
publique.
want to
Donc,
present you
Monsieur
the results
Richard
of
va
the
vous les
participants. So
présenter. Et
Mr.
suite à
Richard
ça,
will present that,
Monsieur Simard va
and
vous
after
parler
that,
des
Mr.
prochaines étapes.
Simon will talk to you about the next steps. Thank you. Mr. Richard.
Bon, voilà. Voilà. Alors, bonsoir, Monsieur le maire, membre du conseil.
Good evening, Worship Council. Colleagues, I know that there are some people listening in on the web. As my colleague Aga mentioned, it's really a multi-sectorial. So my role tonight, given my responsibilities with the participation of the public and the Dialogue Dieppe page, that I'm just here to present the results. So the documentation that you received on the Dialogue Dieppe page in English and in French, the report is also available to the public. And this afternoon, at the end of the day, we sent a notice, an info newsletter to all the participants and the public to inform them that the document was there and that the presentation would be made tonight and that they could go see the presentation after the meeting if they wish. So just to give you a bit of background on the public participation, as you know, with the entire pandemic, it's not easy to consult the public. We had some restrictions. We couldn't have public meetings. We couldn't have events like we do sometimes. So certainly what we did was the best that we could do given the tools that we had and the limitations on time. It's not ideal to just have an online survey because we know everybody may not have access. But I think, however, we got some results that are representative of the community in terms of demographics, etc., and significant because when we look at the level of participation, it was one of the most popular projects. The other one on outside fires, but we just wanted to give you that info before I start. So what we asked people on the dialogue Dieppe page is that these are two completely different pages. So the results are not necessarily combined. We presented them to you, but they're not combined. There were two distinct pages. It's a technology question. It's not us. So what people had access was the document that was presented by Benoît. They could read it. And then there were three opportunities for people to participate in the discussion. We had a survey. It's about 100 people who completed the survey. We also had an exercise to generate some ideas. People had suggestions as far as urban forestry. There's about 25 people who contributed ideas. There were about 25 ideas. There might have been some people who proposed more than one. Then we had a discussion forum where we were trying to get some discussion, a little bit less popular, but we did get a bit of participation in that. So essentially, we had a total of 527 visits. That doesn't mean that those 527 people, some might have gone more than once, but 527 visits. And what was interesting is that we had 44 new registrations to the page. So these are projects that allow us to be fairly new using those platforms. So we're generating a following out there and people who are registering. So that project has given us 44 new registrations, which is fairly significant. The other thing you've seen in the details of the report is that we explain three types of visitors. We're talking about conscious visitors. We talk about informed visitors and committed visitors. So what's the difference? A conscious visitor is somebody who at least visited one page, who went to see the page, maybe read it, etc. So we had 344 out of the 527. The informed visitor, these are people who looked at least two pages or more. So they clicked at two different places. So we had 247 of those. But what's really important is we're trying to get committed visitors. These are people not only visited pages, but who decided to participate in a survey or a forum or whatever. And we had 137, which is quite good. So I just wanted to say that because you had that in your report, but maybe just to explain what it means. We also have to remember that pages, yes, we want to get a consultation, but it also serves an element of information and awareness and communication about what's going on in the city. So it's not just the committed visitors who are important, even though we want them, but the people who just visited pages have to say that they learned something, and we hope they're better informed. So that gives you a bit of an idea. I think in terms of the demographics, as you might have noticed, it was fairly good. I think the demographics of the participants is representative of overall demographics here in Dieppe. For example, we saw representative in terms of age, for example, a lot more people with families, with children who participated. So all of that makes it such that it's fairly representative of our community as such. As I mentioned a minute ago, it also, that survey allows us to get information as well about the community to be able to inform us as to how we can better inform the community or make them aware. So you see questions like 3 and 4. These are questions, for example, on the use of our program. When we're talking about the tree planting program for newborns, etc., something. An important distinction here is that we have more francophones who are informed than the anglophones. So this is information that we can use if we want to target a certain group, but we can also get information to help us. Same thing with the question on community trees. There's a difference there between the francophones and the anglophones and their awareness. And we know, based on the comments that were made, if you had the chance to read the comments, there's a lot of people who are making suggestions as far as planting trees. What's interesting is that we realize that a lot of those people may not be aware of the programs that we have. So we do a lot of work to promote it, but there may still be opportunities to promote what we're doing and the opportunities that we offer. I'm going through fairly quickly the questions because I think you've had a chance to go through it. But I think that there's an appetite for the participants on the question of having a minimum of 2 hours per property. That wasn't a recommendation from the thing, but that's something we thought of. We wanted to feel the pulse, but I think conceptually people are in agreement that this principle of having a minimum of 2 trees per property, certainly there are some people who are opposed to that for fairly strong reasons, but for those in the report who want to look at it, you can see the detail of what came out. But I think what came out often, and it's on the 3 questions linked with what the consultant will provide. People are those who are opposed. It's the question of don't tell me what to do on my property. That's it. It's a private property. Leave me alone. So I'm saying that just like that because people may not have all of that information. I think that what the people who are opposed, but a lot of people are for or in favor of that recommendation. However, on the question as far as cutting trees on a private property, again, the majority of people, be it francophone or anglophone, who completed it, are the majority are in favor of requiring a permit to cut down a tree on a private lot. Those who are opposed are fundamentally opposed for the reasons I just mentioned. And you also have the result that you can see. On the question of evaluating the trees before you give a building permit, also strong support for that. And we can see all the details of the respondents. And finally, wanted to go a little bit further to see what people might think about as far if there was an eventual regulation and if we had a type of evaluation of the trees, who should pay for that? Just curious, and you can see what people are saying. I think that it's divided, but we have options that it be paid completely by the property owner or completely the city or shared. So it's a bit of a mix in that regard. And if we were there, what percentage of the cost would be acceptable? That as well. That was divided, and I think that there were comments on it. And the last one is, let's say we came up with a recommendation. Should there be fines in case of an infraction? There's a regulation that says you need a permit before you cut down the tree, and the neighbor cuts the tree. Should there be a fine for that? And I think the majority of people were in favor of that. That completes the presentation of the results. And again, what we're saying is that it's a sample. I know that my colleague Stéphane Simon will talk about in the next steps, but nonetheless, we have to understand that that we consulted a sample of the information, and the people spoke out based on the information they had. I think that there was some information that was detailed from the consultant, but people were giving their opinion without being aware of all the pros and cons that might apply. So that completes. Don't know if there were any particular questions or if my colleague Stéphane. I see a few questions. Mr. Lantaigne. Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Luc, for this presentation and the results. Just with regards to the fact that 64% are in favor of a regulation and that you need a permit for cutting a tree on a private lot and 36% again. My intention is not to start a debate or to take a position. I'm just curious to know if people realize that when we're talking about private property, that would include, because people say not do it. I wonder if people realize that people understood that when we're talking about private property, we're talking about your property at your lot at home. There might be some people who thought, well, a private lot, it's somebody that does it, something that doesn't belong to the city, but it's not necessarily my property. Because I had the comment, and some people were saying, look, it's me, and then the other one would say, well, it's good. People are saying, well, okay, but if you need a permit, then somebody from the city would have to be there, an expert, an arborist or whatever, who would evaluate it. And there's some cost that between 200 to 700. It's okay to say, yes, we're ready, but honestly, would a citizen be prepared to pay $200 to get somebody come to say, yes or no, you can or you can't cut that tree? I'm not convinced that. I could say that there are some who do that already. There are people who do that. They hire somebody to look at the trees. We do it periodically at home. Yes, yes, somebody who cares for a tree like me. I have a tree that is going through my patio. I'm in care. We're talking about the majority. I'm just asking the question to say what I want to say is, look, yeah, I want to cut that tree, and then I have to get somebody from the city, and before having a permit, I have to pay $200 to see if I have the right to cut it or not. That could be lots of fun, but it's just a point I wanted to raise. I don't want to get into a debate. It's just a comment. In English, it's the NIMBY, not in my backyard. That being said, Madame Boudreau.
Merci, Monsieur le maire.
Thank you,
Justement, c'est ça, le questionnaire, j'ai l'impression des fois,
Worship.
les
Yes,
gens,
the
ils savaient pas
questionnaire,
encore
sometimes
les
I wonder
définitions.
if people may not have
Ils savaient
understood
pas
the
de quoi on parlait.
definitions or didn't know what we
Dans
were
la
talking
question,
about.
qui devrait
In the
payer
question,
telle
who should
évaluation?
pay for such an
Dans les réponses,
evaluation?
ben,
Well,
de
then
qui
the
on parle du
answers,
développeur, on
are
parle
we talking about the
du
developer or
privé, comme les
private
propriétaires qui ont déjà une
owner
maison, on va dire.
who already have a
C'est ça,
house or
il y a eu
whatever?
comme un petit peu,
I think that there was a bit of
clair pour
uh,
certains.
confusion there for the minds of some people. It happens sometimes that the question can create some confusion. That's it. Madame Godbout.
Merci. Je voulais juste clarifier. Vous
I
savez, il y
just
avait demandé
wanted
des
to
informations sur le code
clarify
postal.
some
Je regarde
information
la
of
façon que ça a été présenté. C'est difficile
postal
d'avoir aussi
codes,
l'information de
the
ça.
way
Je
it
ne sais
seemed
pas
it's
si vous
hard
avez
to get the
l'exercice d'essayer de
information. I
faire
don't know if you went through the
estimer des
exercise
quartiers ou
of trying to decide what different neighborhoods
des
are,
idées qui ont ressorti plus particulièrement dans certains
came
quartiers.
out to
La façon que c'est
certain
fait,
points of view are hard. The way it's done, it's very individualized, so we can't
La
really
question aussi j'avais, c'était à savoir, c'est parce que les
identify
gens,
the
on
trends.
devait
But
distinguer
also,
entre
I
les gens qui
wondered
sont
if we could
propriétaires puis peut-être locataires.
the
Il y a une
difference between people
différente
who are
perspective
owners and
différente
renters with their
dans
different
les villes. Des fois, bon,
perspectives
peut-être
on the results
pense
based
qu'on
on whether they were landowners or
sûrement
renters.
que oui, mais si oui, qu'est-ce que
Maybe
c'était?
yes, but if so, what might be the difference? We can maybe look at that. Certainly, when you look at the survey, the majority of the people who completed are landowners, property owners. in terms of looking at all of the answers. We'll verify that, but it's a good question. We'll have to do some more analysis. Thank you. Mr. Simard. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Judge. You know, you're talking like a lawyer. No, no, the second time that I've said that, the different one was with the previous mayor. I called him the judge. Okay, I restart. Thank you, Your Worship. I want to talk to you about the next steps. I'm also involved in the fact that I will be working on the bylaw that'll about Luc talk to us about all of the consultation that was done with the public. Obviously very important, and that will be done as quickly as possible. It's the consultation with the developers. We need the point of view of those people who are important part of the picture. So we don't have a date, but we're looking to do that as soon as possible. In the terms of reference for Bruno Chico, one of the elements was to do a video, explanatory videos that we could use to carry out that consultation with explanations, etc. Those videos are not ready yet. Madam Spencer mentioned that, but as soon as possible, that consultation. Once that's done, then you've asked some complementary analysis of the survey, but we're also going to look at analyzing all of the pros and cons of each of the proposals from Bruno Chicoine, the three proposals that we discussed. We're also going to analyze the financial side of it, because everything that we put into place, there's a possibility of some costs or resources required. So what we would like to do is that as much as possible, we'd like to come back to you on Tuesday, April 19th, after Easter. We'd like to come back with the completed analysis, and we will present that, and we'd like to get from you, because it's your role as far as, you know, which direction we go with those three proposals. And it's normal every time that we put into place a bylaw, especially the new bylaw for protecting trees. It's important to have the position of council and some direction from council, and that will serve us to build that. So we're lucky we already have a draft bylaw, but we need to have your input before completing that bylaw and presenting a first draft for first reading. But we should not forget as well before reading, so that it'll take some time, but certainly based on the indications we get, it's possible that there will be some impact on the zoning bylaws. For example, if we ask a permit to get a study from an arborist before building, then there is some possibility that we would need to amend the zoning bylaws.
Let's keep that in mind, and we'll go as quickly as possible. It's going to be a priority. If it goes well, perhaps in May or maybe in June, and I can't guarantee it. But if we were making sausages, we could adjust our machine and make a certain number per day. But this first bylaw should be the right one. And when you put them in place, there are three principles. It must answer to the needs of the city. It must be physically applicable, and you have to put the resources necessary to execute it. So when we present something, we'll have thought about it a lot and we'll be follow your directives, yes, but in the right way. That's what we're looking for. The next step in the month of April, if all goes well, we'll have 2 weeks with respect to the delays, the dates for submitting documents. So that's what we want, and that's where we're putting our efforts. Thank you. Other questions from councillors? If not, it's the end of the meeting. Yes. We're always open. Question inaudible. No mic. Could you please identify yourself? I'm Anne Jameson. I live on Amiro. I have a hectare with many trees, and they're going into the marsh. You remember we had a wind and rainstorm in the beginning of November 2018. We had 2 or 3 days of wind and rain. I had a row of spruce, and on Sunday, one of them fell towards the north and cut off the power of my house and part of Jacques Street. We didn't have power for 4 days. Monday, another tree crashed on the barn behind my house. I came down very quickly, and there were 4 trees left, and they could have damaged my house. So I hope that if you have to have a permit to cut trees, you will have an express line for trees that could cause danger to the property. That's all I had to say. Thank you. Obviously, we will have to have provisions in this article for this type of circumstances, of course. Is that it? Then have a good evening to everyone.